And whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threats on.
Our job is to do what's in the best interest of our country.
You made my argument for me.
My guest and I tackle the issues that really matter, with a sharp take on every story.
I'm hearing it up and down the country.
That was a beginning, not an end.
Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
I'm Stephen Dixon, and thanks for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Emily Carver. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News is Britain's election channel.
And when the big stories break, we're tackling them on Britain's newsroom. When we disagree, and we disagree a lot, it's even livelier than normal.
We don't disagree that much.
We do.
His comedy, though, is revolting.
I knew her, and unlike you. That explains Beverly Turner's temperament.
It's a bit frosty in here, isn't it?
You'll have one of me one day.
For dartball practice. Britain's newsroom on GB News. Weekdays, 9:30 a.m.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, very good morning to you. 6 o'clock on this Tuesday morning, 28th of May.
Welcome to Breakfast with Eamonn Holmes and Isabel Webster.
Campaign chaos as retiring Tory MP Lucy Allen is suspended for backing reform, while the Prime Minister tries to shift focus to his economic credentials, declaring the state pension will never be taxed.
Keir Starmer gets personal, declaring himself a socialist who will always put his country first, as Labour sets to show off their business credentials.
Humanitarian heartbreak in Rafa as world leaders condemn the Israeli airstrike on Sunday, which killed 45 people, now described by Benjamin Netanyahu as a tragic mistake.
And President Biden has intervened to keep Prince Harry's visa documents secret.
And in the sport this morning, the managerial merry-go-round is still spinning. Where it stops, nobody knows. We'll find out who's on and who's off. 37-year-old and 14, I gave him far too many, 14 times winner Rafa Nadal is out of possibly his last French Open, losing in the first round. And England's cricketers play their second T20 against Pakistan today, but without captain Jos Buttler, who is about to become a father for the third time.
A showery bank holiday weekend for many of us. There's further wet weather on the way. Join me later for the full forecast with all the details.
Hello there, nice to have you on board. Our top story this morning, despite some bumps on the campaign trail, the Prime Minister is to declare the state pension will never be taxed as he unveils a quadruple lock.
Yes, this will keep income for the elderly safe, he's claiming. But meanwhile, Labour is set to show off their economic credentials today, following on from Keir Starmer's keynote speech yesterday.
The very foundation of any good government is economic security, border security, national security. This is the foundation, the bedrock that our manifesto, our first steps, will be built on. And then on that foundation, with an end to the Tory chaos, we can start to rebuild our country. Step one, economic stability, the very foundation of growth, with tough spending rules that mean we can keep inflation, taxes and mortgages low.
Shadow Chancellor Rachel Reeves has promised to lead the most pro-growth Treasury agenda as they receive the backing today of 120 business leaders.
And yesterday, the campaign turned to Scotland as the SNP John Swinney leader vowed to kick the Tories out of every seat in the country.
I want to bring people in Scotland together. I want to unite people in Scotland on an agenda to make Scotland a better country. And that's about tackling some of the issues that are really significant and damaging for Scotland that we've had in recent years. The impact of austerity, the impact of Brexit, the impact of the cost of living crisis. I want to address those issues and address them through the election.
And where are the Lib Dems? Well, their leader, Ed Davey, will be in Lake Windermere. Paddle boarding.
Making a splash. I can see the headlines already.
After launching the Lib Dems campaign in Scotland yesterday.
The people of Scotland have been doubly let down. Let down by an out-of-touch Conservative government in Westminster and taken for granted by an out-of-touch SNP government in Holyrood. They both have to go. Yeah.
OK, well, they're all having their say. Let's get the thoughts of Spiked Online's deputy editor, Fraser Myers, on what he's hearing from the leaders.
Good morning.
Well,
so it's interesting hearing about this new, essentially, well, they're calling it a quadruple lock or a triple lock plus. They haven't quite decided on the language yet to protect elderly people's pensions. A lot of viewers might be a bit confused by this. They might think that I don't pay any tax on my state pension. But actually, ironically, it's under Jeremy Hunt's plans, currently, as they currently stand, that you will by 2027. So the Tories have announced this big policy saying they're going to protect pensioners to protect them from the Tories' own policies, strangely. I think what this is an interesting sign of is the Conservatives really trying to shore up their core vote. As things stand, it's only the over 70s who are most likely to back the Tories. And I think strategists in the party think that they can claw back a lot of elderly voters or ensure people turn out on the day to ensure that Labour don't win a completely humiliating and commanding victory in this election. It seems designed much like the National Service proposal to appeal to perhaps voters who are leaning towards reform or perhaps voters who are saying they don't know. I think they think they can win those voters back.
On this £2.4 billion tax cut for pensioners, how are they proposing to pay for it? I mean, if I hear one more time through clawing back tax avoidance, that seems to be the new sort of go-to magic pot of gold, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. It's interesting. That seems to be the Tories' pot of gold, just as Labour, they must have funded God knows how many commitments through the tax on private schools and similar. I guess one thing, I suppose the Tories aren't going to be in the next government is the saving grace for them. Perhaps it doesn't matter where the money for this entirely hypothetical scheme is going to come from.
Be interesting to see David Cameron out and about today.
Sorry, what did you say?
David Cameron, I'm saying, he's out and about today. He's in the northwest of the country campaigning.
Yeah, it's interesting to see. It wasn't clear how much of a role Cameron would play because obviously he is unelected. He was put into the House of Lords in quite a surprise move by Rishi Sunak. So I think Cameron, someone who represents an earlier form of the Tories, a sort of more technocratic style of Tory of the Tory party before Boris Johnson, before Liz Truss, and it seems as if they are looking almost back to that kind of 2015 coalition that won them the surprise victory in 2015. People not necessarily, not that newer working class coalition of the Red Wall. They're going back to the core vote of, Southeast, pensioners, professionals, if that makes sense.
How do you think Rishi Sunak will feel his campaign is going so far? I mean, it's been a pretty tumultuous few days. First of all, his sort of feels a bit like a back of the fag packet conscription plan, sort of backfired, with military experts saying it's bonkers, to quote one of them. You've got Zach Goldsmith saying the majority of Tory MPs are going to lose their job. You've got a leaked memo to The Times saying that there are lots of disgruntled Tory MPs refusing to go out, rather go on holiday than get out on the campaign trail. And then you've got Lucy Allen, Conservative MP, backing the Reform candidate in her own constituency as she's due to stand down. It's not exactly a ringing endorsement, is it?
Well, I think it started off immediately with that terrible speech in the rain. Him being blasted, music drowning him out. I think it's gone from bad to worse. There's been a gaffe nearly every day. He's visited the Titanic Quarter last week, which was another completely unforced error. I think, perhaps one of the reasons for calling this election early was the fact that, the longer the government is in, the more potential there are for things like defections, things like more scandals, worse economic news. And now it's like we're seeing all of that happening, within the space of just a week. It hasn't even been a week since the election was called. And already, as you say, there's this, list of unforced errors. I think, the Tories are going to have to throw everything they have at the election. Perhaps that's another reason why you're getting, quite surprising, quite bold, if you like, brave, to use a sort of yes minister language, policies like national service. Certainly they are grabbing the public's attention, but, there is such a thing as bad news in politics as well as good news.
OK, Fraser, thank you very much indeed. Grabbing attention, that's what we're trying to do today with you guys listening and watching at home. So get in touch with us. You know how to do that. Express your vote. And how wise was Rishi Sunak to put a football at his feet and go between those cones? You see, they all think, I've seen Tony Blair do it as well. And you look and you think, oh, dear me, stay away.
Well, Fraser was talking about unforced errors, and there was a picture of Rishi Sunak dribbling a ball. I mean, he wasn't as bad as I expected. But that must be the downside, is all these photo ops, and you're going to see a lot of them over the next few weeks. We can all remember George Osborne.
So that wasn't as bad as you expected.
No, I thought it...
Don't know what you were expecting.
Was that poor?
That was poor.
Really?
That was pretty poor. He obviously has never kicked a ball in his life before and then pretends he has. That's the danger. You see, politicians now at this time of year, when elections come about, they then go to great pains to show that they are like the rest of us, that they do the things that the rest of us do, except we know they don't. So why do them in the first place? So
well, he can't exactly just go to the maths classroom constantly, can he, on his rounds?
Is there any, can this man get any more boring than he is? This business of conscription, this business of maths. Why does he want to? He just would have made a perfect sort of awful head teacher, wouldn't he? It wouldn't it be? Oh, Mr. Sunak's in today. He's a right bore, he is.
Yeah, but I mean, it's all the colours of the rainbow when it comes to the gaffes. And I'm thinking now, is it not George Osborne, Ed Miliband, when he was wrapping his mouth around a bacon sandwich and all the lenses, it was in front of every paper. It's not going to be fun. I think it's going to be a fairly brutal campaign for all involved. And we will be with them every step of the way. So let us know what you make of it all. GBnews.com.
You see, what I make of it is you don't see presidential candidates in America doing this. They act presidentially. I think, Starmer and Sunak and what's his name for the Lib Dems should act prime ministerial, and then people might see them as prime ministerial. All this business of kicking footballs, a lot of nonsense. gbnews.com/have your say, and we would welcome that very generously from you. Thank you very much.
We're going to turn our attention now to the Middle East. It's been a pretty horrific weekend. The Israeli Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, has said that the airstrike, which killed 45 civilians on Sunday was a tragic mistake.
So the strike in Rafa killed dozens of Palestinians, with most being women and children. That's according to Hamas-run health ministry in Gaza.
Well, the attack has been condemned by European leaders as well as by the US President Joe Biden, who's told Israel to take every precaution to protect civilians.
Let's go to the director of Sanctuary Foundation, Dr. Krish Kandia, on this tragic, really, really awful situation. What went wrong?
What went wrong was that President Netanyahu decided to ignore international advice, the censure of the International Court of Justice, and carry on an attack. In Rafah, 85% of the Palestinian population had fled to that area under the orders of the IDF. And so you've got a huge number of women and children in a tent village, and then you go and drop munitions on that space. We've seen the devastation that the bombs bring on buildings, but when you've only got a tarpaulin between you and the rest of the world, it's going to rip through that space with devastating severity. We were hearing from rescue workers that children were on fire, that people have been blown apart. It's absolutely devastating.
Those images were harrowing, images of babies decapitated and, as you say, severe burns, and lots of innocent children in what was described as a safe area. The fact that the Israelis have called this a mistake, that something has gone tragically wrong, does that get them off the hook?
I don't think it does, Isabel, because they were told this would be devastating, any kind of military intervention in such a populated space. It's not a mistake. It's not out of nowhere that this has happened. For me, it speaks to no one caring about the civilians of Palestine, whether that's Hamas for provoking a terrible response from Israel. The attacks of October the 7th have to be condemned, absolutely terrible. But they knew what they were doing, Hamas. They knew there'd be a terrible response from Israel. And Israel has responded by killing so many civilians. So it seems no one really cares about the civilians. They're willing to be used as collateral damage.
OK, Dr. Krish Kandia, thank you very much indeed for bringing us up to date and all of that this morning.
Awful situation, that one. Again, your view's very welcome. Let's have a look at some other stories coming into the newsroom on this Tuesday morning. And Ireland, Norway and Spain will formally recognise a Palestinian state today.
The flag is to be flown over Leinster House, the home of the Irish Parliament, and the Palestinian mission in Dublin is to be upgraded to an embassy where an ambassador will be appointed.
Shop inflation levels are back to what is called normal, according to figures published by the British Retail Consortium. It had eased to the lowest level since November 2021 after retailers cut the price of big purchases such as furniture and televisions. Unusually wet weather has also been credited with helping to ease prices.
Plans to build full fibre broadband in more than 500 new locations have been unveiled by Openreach today. The project will cover 2.7 million more homes and businesses, including 400,000 premises in the hardest-to-reach parts of the country.
Tornadoes and storms have left at least 19 people dead across 4 states in the USA. Homes have been destroyed, hundreds of thousands of people left without power in Texas, Arkansas, Oklahoma and Kentucky. Over 110 million Americans are under severe weather warnings. A court has heard pleas from the Biden administration to conceal a law enforcement record concerning Prince Harry's visa application.
Yes, attorneys working with the Department of Homeland Security asserted that if the records were made public, there would be a stigma attached. And at the centre of the dispute is what he told the American authorities about his prior drug use.
But you see, there would only be a stigma attached if the records were in some way falsified or wrong or inconsistent. Joining us now, the woman in the know, Kinsey Schofield, to tell us more on all of this. Why is the revelation of this so sensitive, Kinsey?
Well, you know, I looked up the definition of the word stigma, and it's a mark of disgrace associated with a particular circumstance. And I'm just like, did the Biden administration read Spare? Did they skip that chapter where he rubs the cream on the wear and he senses Princess Diana in the room? There was the disgrace right there. I don't really, you know, the objective is the Heritage Foundation wants to know, did he or didn't he admit to drug use? Did he lie? Was he given special treatment? And, you know, I really thought it was telling that the Telegraph, who is pretty friendly towards Prince Harry, used the words pleads with the court to keep Prince Harry's visas documents under wraps, because it does give you a sense that there's a sense of desperation from the Biden administration. What are they trying to hide? Why is this so important to them?
Well, that's a good question. And do you think that there could be plausibly any pressure coming from the royal family here because of any associated disgrace that it could cause?
You know, as far as I've heard, there is complete distance between the British royal family and Prince Harry and anything he's got going on in his sphere right now. The Bidens have been really, they've been very kind towards Harry and Meghan. We've seen them side with Harry and Meghan. They sided with Harry and Meghan after the Oprah Winfrey interview. They used to attend Invictus. Biden recently was talking about how important Invictus was. So I do feel like President Biden and his wife have a very soft spot for Prince Harry.
There's a soft spot in your head this morning. I'm trying to.
I was doing the same.
Trying to work out your. For some reason, sorry, I can't. What is? Right.
It's like from the Statue of Liberty, but it looked like a flashing light on your hairband.
Yeah. So it is a hairband.
It is. I apologize.
Or a halo.
Flashing lights.
No. At least now we know what it is. I thought it was something technical that wasn't working out. But so. How damaging is this or not? Is it irrelevant to Harry? Because obviously some people want to imply or prove that he was taking drugs and therefore he shouldn't have got his American citizenship as a result. And other people would say that he was lying about the situation. What way do you see the whole thing panning out?
Well, I know you guys are in the election mix right now, and so are we here in the United States. I think that if Biden is elected again, Prince Harry can feel confident in the fact that this information won't come out and that he will likely continue to stay protected in the United States. But we have heard former President Donald Trump suggest that if he becomes the next president and finds out that Prince Harry lied on these documents or was given that special treatment that people are concerned about, that he will take action. So, you know, all eyes are on our elections, I guess.
Sure. And whilst we're talking about American politics, how discussed is it and how expected is it that perhaps Meghan could dip her toe in the ring at some point, and perhaps all of this is about protecting a future Democrat in that couple there?
Isabel, could it get any worse for my country? I'm moving over there. All I need is a dinghy. Apparently, you guys are just letting 10,000 of them over at a time. No, I do think that that is a concern. Meghan has voiced, and her father has even said Meghan would love to have some sort of say in politics. And during the last election, we saw Meghan speak on panels with Hillary Clinton, Kamala Harris, who's now the VP, and Michelle Obama, the former First Lady. So Meghan has tried to insert herself, especially when it comes to the Democratic Party in politics, recently.
There we go. Never say never. It's all to play for. But if it means we get you over here, Kinsey, that's a great thing. Kinsey Schofield joining us all the way from Los Angeles, complete with her Statue of Liberty hairband this morning. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kinsey. Thank you. Let's get the weather update. Ellie Glazer, it's getting brighter and brighter in the mornings.
Yeah.
Now, but I don't know what that means in terms of the weather.
At least no tornadoes. They were extraordinary, weren't they, in Tornado Alley in the States. Hopefully a bit better over here.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning and welcome to your latest GB News weather from the Met Office. So after a showery weekend for many of us, there is further rain on the way as we head through the rest of today. This arriving into the west through the early hours of this morning and continues to push its way northwards as we head through this afternoon. But it will be a bit of a brighter start across parts of Scotland and northern England through this morning. That rain continues to turn quite heavy in places, particularly across western parts of Scotland, although we could see some showers developing across parts of Northern Ireland, central and southern parts of England. There could be some hail and thunder mixed in here too. Temperatures round about average for the time of year, 17 or 18 degrees across the south, but definitely feeling cooler under that cloud and rain. Through the rest of Tuesday evening, the rain continues to push its way northwards across parts of Scotland. The very far northeast perhaps getting away with some dry conditions, but that rain turning heavy in places and those blustery, thundery showers continuing across parts of Northern Ireland and into southern parts of Scotland through this evening. The showers also continuing for northern parts of and eastern parts of England, but further south and further west, we will see outbreaks of rain continuing to push their way eastwards overnight tonight and into the early hours of Wednesday morning. Showers gradually easing generally though through the early hours of the morning, and there will be some clear spells between those showers, so perhaps turning a little chilly in places, but quite widely those temperatures holding up into the double figures into the early hours of Wednesday morning. Around 12, 13, perhaps even 14 degrees in places, but perhaps a little lower under those clearer spells. It does mean that Wednesday starts a little drier and brighter for many of us though. There'll be some sunshine as we head through the morning, perhaps a little cloudier though across parts of Scotland. But as we head in towards Wednesday afternoon, heavy showers developing again. The heavier showers once more across parts of eastern Scotland, northeastern England, but almost anywhere could see a shower through the afternoon, again with some hail and thunder mixed in too. Perhaps a little warmer than Tuesday with highs of 19 or 20 degrees and a little cooler further north.
That warm feeling inside. From Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Now, £20,000 has to be won. It absolutely has to. It's essential. And it is our great British giveaway.
The lines will close on Friday. And in advance of that, the details you need for your chance to win all that dosh.
It's the final week to see how you can win a whopping £20,000 cash. And because it's totally tax-free, every single penny will be in your bank account to do whatever you like with. £20,000 in tax-free cash really could be yours this summer. Hurry, as lines close on Friday. You've got to be in it to win it. For another chance to win £20,000 in tax-free cash, text WIN to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB05 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
What a weekend it was.
Indeed.
It was.
Yeah.
It was just marvellous, marvellous, marvellous. The FA Cup final, one of the greatest cup finals there's ever been, and just got me there.
Yeah.
It's emotional.
It was.
Anyway, Paul Coit will be here with all your sports news. I don't know if he's looking back at the cup final, but we're looking ahead to a lot of things as well. The sport next.
GB News is Britain's election channel.
And when the big stories break, we're tackling them on Britain's newsroom. When we disagree, and we disagree a lot, it's even livelier than normal.
We don't disagree that much.
We do.
His comedy, though, is revolting. I knew her, and unlike you.
That explains Beverly Turner's temperament.
It's a bit frothy in here, isn't it?
You'll have one of me one day.
For dartball practice.
Britain's newsroom on GB News. Weekdays, 9:30 a.m.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're GB News, and we come from a proud tradition of British journalism.
That's why I'm so excited to be here. It's something so new.
The first news channel to be launched in Britain in over 30 years.
Launched to represent the views of the British people.
To go where other broadcasters refuse to go.
How did you find out about the story in the first place?
Launched with one aim.
To be the fearless champion of Britain.
It's an absolutely fantastic atmosphere here.
This is GB News.
The People's Channel.
GB News, Britain's news channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry. Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threat and so on.
Our job is to do what's in the best interest of our country.
You made my argument for me.
My guests and I tackle the issues that really matter, with a sharp take on every story.
I'm hearing it up and down the country.
That was a beginning, not an end.
Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Latest sport. Let's go through that now with Mr. Paul Coyte. And well, you know, mate, I haven't seen you since since the weekend, but it was truly glorious. It was
glorious, wasn't it?
It was, mate.
Were you surprised though?
Totally shocked.
Yeah.
I mean, I was expecting a humiliation and
I know you were
trouncing.
And it wasn't even anywhere near a trouncing.
It was not. It was a fantastic performance.
And Manchester United were terrific.
Yeah.
So are you now looking at this thinking, this Eric Ten Hag?
Yeah.
This.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think you'd be very brave now to dismiss this man when he shows that he can produce a performance like that against what is the best team in the world.
But was it him that produced the performance? Was it the players?
I think the players
suddenly stepped up.
I think the players were playing for him.
Do you?
Oh gosh, yeah.
See, the thing is, I don't know whether, and this often happens when you get managers that get sacked, often after a big win, because I think the board believe that it's a game they're going to lose because they plan the sacking and think... So I don't know whether Manchester United have done this, but I wouldn't be at all surprised if Jim Radcliffe and all the hierarchy are thinking, right, when should we do this? We've got to do this at the right time. We're playing Man City in the cup final. It's not really much. I don't think we're going to win. So maybe that is the time. But then what happens? They go and beat Man City. So does it then make it more of a difficult decision? Because they've got to decide sooner or later whether they're sticking around.
Yeah, it does, because they don't make decisions like that unless they've approached someone else and said, we're going to make an announcement with you on a certain date or whatever. And so that other person knows that they're going to be put in the job. Now, will that person be Pochettino? Will it be Southgate? Who will it be?
Because that is the managerial merry-go-round.
That is it.
Who's jumping on? Who's jumping off? You know who I feel sorry for? Russell Martin. Russell Martin, who's the Southampton manager. OK, he's taking him up. He's the only name that nobody's ever mentioning.
No one's connected.
Everybody else is like, well, Kieran McKenna, Ipswich manager, will have him. And we've got Enzo Maresca, Leicester manager, will have him. And there's poor old Russell's thinking, well, what's wrong with me then? I've taken Southampton up.
Yeah.
Enzo Maresca. Now, this is the Leicester manager. So he is now being linked the most likely to take over at Chelsea. By the way, do you know who Ernie Maresca is?
No.
Do you remember the song Shout, Shout, Knock Yourself Out? Shout, shout, knock yourself out. Yell, yell and swell. Put another dime in the rock. That's Ernie Maresca. So just never confuse Enzo Maresca with Ernie Maresca.
So how are they related?
I don't know. They're just the only two Marescas I've ever heard of.
OK, so they mightn't be related.
So Ernie Maresca is Shout, Shout, Knock Yourself Out. There he is. That's him. That's Ernie Maresca. He looks like a pretty smooth guy, doesn't he? Whereas Enzo Maresca is the manager of Leicester and probably will be manager of Chelsea. Now, the thing is, as I was mentioning about, you get the managers and all of a sudden they get the new big thing because they've taken their teams up. With him, he worked under Pep, so Chelsea are thinking, oh, I worked under Pep Guardiola. Look what happened with old Captain Black. That obviously worked very well. But Leicester were always more likely to go up, I think, than anybody else in the Championship after going straight down. So does it make him such a great manager that all of a sudden everybody's interested in? And is he any better than Mauricio Pochettino? I think the answer is probably no. But maybe they think yes.
Yeah, who knows what the science is behind all of this?
I have no idea.
Rafa Nadal
yes, sir.
In the French Open, you think we've seen the last of him?
Yeah, I think so. 14 times champion, 37 years old, same age as Andy Murray. And when you start losing like Andy did in the first round, surely it's a way of realising it's that difficult decision. It's time for me to stop. Now, he said this is him playing yesterday. I mean, it wasn't an easy game. I mean, he's playing against Alexander Zverev, so I mean, it's a really tricky first round game. But when you're 275 in the world, then there is more of a chance you're going to play a seeded player. So anyway, he did lose in straight sets. But he's also said afterwards that he's not likely to play at Wimbledon, and the reason is, although he's won Wimbledon twice, the reason for that is that he's looking at the Olympic Games. But the Olympic Games, the tennis is going to be played at Roland Garros, which is where the French Open is. So although he's very good there, but what he's likely to do is play doubles with Carlos Alcaraz, whom we know how good he is. Two great Spanish players playing together, going for the gold medal for Spain. So I think he's probably thinking that would be the perfect way for me to end my career, whereas playing on grass is not going to do me any favours before the Olympic Games.
Tell us about the third T20 against Pakistan, England against Pakistan.
They won at the weekend. Very good, T20. But Joss Butler is not going to play because about to have his third child.
Third child,
Remember the old days? The old days, they wouldn't have any of that.
No.
Oh, no, you have to go and play.
No.
And where's your priorities? You're having a child, you've got to play.
Yeah.
But no, he won't be playing. So it's the third T20 because the World Cup is being held in the summer, which is being held in America and in the West Indies. So it's very bit how Americans are going to get with cricket, I have no idea. But that's what's happening today. Finally, the cheese rolling. Did you see the cheese rolling?
Aye.
I would never do the cheese, especially with my shoulder.
I was just thinking of your shoulder when we were going down and my hips and everything, but...
Yeah, look at this.
They just bounce.
I've done cheese rolling.
You really?
What, you've done something like that?
What, you went after the cheese?
Yeah. So, obviously, I was West of England reporter for many years.
Yeah.
The local BBC covered it there. But when I was a student at Bristol University, we did our own cheese rolling from a very steep hill, chucked a cheese down it and all rolled down it. And it's a miracle none of us broke anything. But you know what it's like when you're 21.
Yeah.
It was probably one of the scariest things I've ever done.
70 miles an hour, those cheeses go.
Well, how would you rate... I mean, were you in control at all?
No. But I was in control enough to think, I never want to do this again, and the people that do it are completely mad. And obviously, having done it and then gone and reported on it, as a young reporter, I remember thinking, how is this tradition still going? But it really is. It's a big thing.
Oh, it's hundreds of years.
It's a really big thing there.
Hundreds of years. It's an Australian one, an American woman one, an American... Coming over here, taking our cheese rolling. Can you believe such a thing? Who would have thought? Letting them cheese roll.
And that's what you get as a prize, isn't it?
Yeah,
you get this...
a nice wheel of cheese.
Yeah.
And that's what you win. So you can end up broken bones, end up in hospital.
People do, really.
My shoulder would have popped out even just watching the cheese roll before it even gone for the whole thing.
Yeah.
But then just run down... So did you... Were you over and over?
Yeah.
Craziness.
Yeah, it's mad.
Absolute craziness.
I was doing more of... Rather than a forward roll, it was more of a sideways rolly...
Right, yeah. Oh, you did that, yeah.
Cautious one.
But you know how I feel about cheese. So how would I feel if I won and then I win a roll of cheese? You just take your cheese.
Whereas I love cheese, I do anything for
Well, there you go. So you would roll for the cheese, not...
My friend, thank you very much indeed. We'll see you again 7:20.
Forward to it.
Still to come, I'll be taking a look at the newspapers and what's in them. Back after this.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In Perth and Kinross, the A9 is closed northbound from the A85 to the Inveralmond roundabout in Perth after an accident. On the M77 in Glasgow, the outside lane's closed southbound when there's an accident at junction 2 at Pollokshaws. In Lincolnshire, the A16 is closed in both directions between the Pinchbeck turnoff and the A152 in Spalding after an accident. In Cambridgeshire, on the A14, the inside lane's closed westbound after an accident between junctions 24B and 23 between Cambridge and Huntingdon. On the M26 in Kent, there are westbound queues towards the M25 because of road works. Also in Kent on the A249, there are southbound queues towards the M2 at Sittingbourne because of road works. And on the Isle of Wight, trains aren't running between Ryde, Pierhead and Shanklin because of a signalling problem. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And why it matters to you. From your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you. Good afternoon, Britain. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. 6:36 is the time. Let's take a look at how the front pages of the newspapers are shaping up on this Tuesday morning. Here's the Telegraph, leading with the Prime Minister's pledge that the state pension will never be taxed under the Conservatives.
The Eye leads with Labour's Metro mayors, who say they are ready to stand up to Keir Starmer to pursue better deals on housing, on transport and council funding.
Here's the Times, leading with Labour winning the endorsement of a coalition of 120 business leaders ranging from Heathrow Airport to Aston Martin.
There's the Express. I'm on your side. PM pledges bumper pension rise. That's what he says.
And The Guardian leads with global outrage after dozens are killed in an Israeli strike on a Rafa refugee camp. Well, we're going through the papers and what's making the news this morning in the company of the author and broadcaster Nikki Hodgson and the political commentator Alex Armstrong. Good morning.
Good morning.
To both of you. Nikki, let's start, shall we, with what's happened on Sunday night. 45 confirmed dead. President Netanyahu describing it as a tragic mistake and sort of harrowing and shocking images of burnt and dismembered babies and children.
I mean, this really is just a horrific turn in the war that is happening in Israel and Gaza. I mean, yeah, so basically what's happened is displaced people that had moved to a camp in Rafa and thought they were safe, presumed it was the safe zone, were actually targeted by Israeli airstrikes. And the accounts, you know, quite aside from the gruesome images and videos that you can see on social media, the accounts of how it happened and what it felt like have just been catastrophic. I mean, this comes 2 days after the International Court of Justice has said that Israel had to stop its operations in Rafa. And, of course, that's not enforceable. That's the problem. It's like it's binding but not enforceable is the phrase that people are using. How do you actually stop Israel doing this kind of thing? I mean, in their defence, they say that it's because there were some senior Hamas operatives in the camp that they were targeting. But it just feels like there's got to be a better... If those people are really there, there's got to be a better way of getting them.
If the ICC can't get Israel to stop affecting the lives and killing civilians, it has to be Israel's allies. They have to do more.
Well, this is the problem. We're going to have, you know, whatever you think about, you know, the attack on October the 6th, you know, it was barbaric. But I think how many people killed? A couple of thousand.
Well,
it's difficult. And now
you can't make sort of numbers. It's not a numbers game, is it? I mean, they have the right to self-determination.
They do, but 35,000 Palestinians dead. You know, at what point is it, you know, no longer proportionate? I think we've reached that point. And it is up to the international community to be bold and brave and say, OK, it's not about taking sides. It's just about saying this, what you're doing right now is not going to help. And also, you know, this is jeopardising the ceasefire talks.
Of course, yeah.
So and it's just, if you're human, I was going to say if you're a parent, I think it's a really patronising thing to say, actually, but if you're human and you look at any of those pictures or read any of those stories, you can't imagine little children going through that. It's just, we've got to reconnect with our humanity with this story, because it's very easy to get, you know, to distance yourself from the pictures and the numbers and whatever, but actually you need to reconnect with it, because that's why we've got to put the pressure on.
Interesting story, Alex, in the Eye, front page of the Eye. Labour Metro mayors say, look, if Starmer wins, we're going to say we want a better deal for consuls.
Yeah, I mean, this is the ongoing battle between devolution and centralisation of power. And mayors are saying, look, we know our local areas way better than you do in Westminster, and we want more control. We want more control over public spending. We want more control over transport and police. And I'm actually massively in favour of this, because I think one of the problems we have in this country is there's no competition between the cities in order to attract people, to attract capital, to attract talent. And it's one of the big problems that London sucks up all of the money, it sucks up all of the talent. And if mayors are able to make their towns and cities more attractive to people, then surely that's better for Britain. We'll spread out the wealth a bit more and spread out the development. But obviously what we're seeing here now is that these mayors who do have a lot more power than an MP, for example, say, well, look, we're going to fight you even if you win the election. I mean, it's pretty much going to be Labour up and down the country, wherever you look, local councillors to MPs. So perhaps this is the sign of the first signs of infighting when you become such a powerful party, which they will be after this election.
Yeah.
You just can't keep things the same. Something's got to change on the local front.
Yeah, I mean, we've still got this ridiculous north-south divide. The disparity between what you have in the north, where I come from in Wakefield, compared to the south, it's just ridiculous. And, you've got people like Andy Burnham in Manchester fighting so hard to make that city, to keep that city brilliant. Because, Manchester's got a long history of being a kind of industrial and cultural heartland. But it's persuading people that actually, you've got their backs in these regional seats. I don't know. I mean, yeah.
This is what works so well about the United States, right? Is that you have a state-based system, and when you're fed up with that state and you go, the taxes have got too high, the police aren't effective, you move to another one. But what happens in our country is that there is no change. Wherever you go, it's the same. So you end up leaving Britain, and we end up having a mass exodus of very talented people. Where actually, if we were to say Manchester had its own rules, like on tax and all these things, you go, well, maybe I'll try Manchester out.
Anecdotally, are you hearing about more people looking to move abroad? Because I have to say, in my friendship circle, more than ever, people are saying fed up.
Yes, I mean, we're having a massive exodus, and that's causing, again, if you're somebody who's at home and you're upset about migration, then this is part of the solution. We need to make Britain more attractive.
Yeah.
Will making sure that pensioners never pay tax, Nikki, be something to please the populace? Or is this, as Eamonn would say, I suppose, one of those occasions when they are trying to buy votes?
It does sound a little bit like that, doesn't it? I think Alex wanted to talk about this in more detail, actually.
Well, OK.
Well, look, I mean, so this is what Rishi Sunak's dubbing the triple lock plus, like an Apple TV.
Quadruple lock,
the quadruple lock, whatever mood you're in today. Look, this is going to be fantastic for older people, of course. It's great. People like myself and maybe Nikki and others here will probably never likely see a pension. So I'm not exactly over the moon about it. I'd rather see the Conservatives double down on working people and giving them a tax break, because at the end of the day, we're the ones who keep productivity high. But obviously, he's trying to appeal to his core Conservative base, which is, the 60 plus traditionally. And this will be a start. Now, what we've seen from Starmer is quite robust responses when the Tories have come out on tax things recently, saying, actually, we're not going to increase tax. And so it will be very interesting to see whether Labour do something similar and say, well, yeah, OK, well, we can agree to that. We don't want to tax pensioners, because this has been Starmer's sort of win so far. He's moving into Tory territory quite a lot. It's very interesting. But it's saying it will leave pensioners better off with £100 a year from next year, and then £300 by the end of the decade.
OK. Let's take a look, Nikki, then, at another one of your stories. This one, soggy spring fires up price of summer barbecue. Tell me more. This is in the Mail today.
Yeah, as if the wet weather and the wet spring wasn't bad enough. Apparently, we're going to pay more for our barbecue, all the ingredients that we're going to use, because the wet weather has had it's affected the prices of the cost of wheat and the vegetables that should have been easily harvested by now. So, yeah, it's a little bit depressing. But, I mean, I don't think it's going to stop anyone actually having a barbecue, because it is one of the joys of summer, isn't it?
So we're talking about bread, pasta, salads and new potatoes up by 8%. And also barbecue meat it is inflation busting prices due to the washout. Crikey, I mean, there's nothing going to get between a British person and their summer barbecue.
Absolutely not. We'll have a barbecue, whatever the weather. I remember when I was a kid, there used to be barbecues cooked outside and then brought indoors, just to enjoy the experience of a barbecue.
Barbecue in the garage. Have you ever done that?
Absolutely. This is Britain. We'll go out in the rain, whatever happens. Come on. But, I thought we just did just heard today that food inflation was back to normal.
It's not barbecue.
It's not barbecue.
It's a little ring-fenced area.
Absolutely bonkers.
I think we've got to be careful about how far we advance barbecues. I think it's, the idea...
By the way, we should say Eamonn is not a barbecue fan.
Really? Eamonn, I thought you would love a barbecue.
Not a fan of a barbie. Oh, you like them now?
I've always liked barbecues.
I swear you've said in the past you hate the British barbecue too.
Not me.
Oh, it definitely was. But anyway.
I love a barbie.
Anyway, I think the idea, the simplicity of the open fire and food on top of that is very nice. The smells that go with that more as well. I think where you spoil it when you get basically an outdoor cooker with all sorts of knobs and things on it, and then it becomes a bit too sophisticated.
Yeah,
well, and
that's
also
very American,
cleaning
isn't it?
the barbecue isn't the worst job in the world. Who gets to have to do that afterwards?
Yeah, well,
mine just sits there for 6 months, and I worry about it the next summer usually.
Men like the idea of the cooking bit.
Oh yeah.
They like for some reason.
It connects with me.
But they don't like the idea of the cleaning bit.
Absolutely.
Maybe that's what you hated. Maybe that's.
I think it's just so easy just to chuck food on a barbie. So men I'm going to do the barbie today. That's all right.
About spoiling things, Alex. Gordon Ramsay, he's been messing with the pizza. What has he come up with?
If I read out the quote from Italians on here, I'd be censored on air this morning, unfortunately. But so Gordon Ramsay has created a full English breakfast pizza with baked beans on it, sausage, ingredients including Bloody Mary vodka, fried egg and black pudding. I mean, absolutely bizarre. I mean, I love a pizza, but this to me is abhorrent. It's abhorrent. I'm sure somebody will eat it, but I think Gordon's run out of ideas. I think he might be in his own Hell's Kitchen show.
What do you think, Nikki? I mean, it's probably got its moment, hasn't it?
I was going to say, the only ingredient I don't agree with is the baked beans, but actually fried egg and black pudding and sausage, they're perfectly normal pizza fare, actually.
No, they're
You've never had a Fiorentina pizza with an egg in the middle?
Well, yeah, a Fiorentina, yeah, for sure, but not black pudding on a pizza.
Why not? You have, ndouja and all the other kinds of sausage.
No.
It's not that different.
No.
It's just baked beans.
I think it's worse to have potatoes on a pizza.
Oh, yeah.
Restaurants in London. And
that's totally wrong.
So wrong.
What about pineapple on pizza?
This one man...
Yeah, that's fine.
This one man in Rome has called Gordon Ramsay a murderer for this.
What would be your favourite, if you actually had to put a concoction together, what would be your favourite as regards
I quite
pizza?
like banana.
On a pizza?
Banana?
I know, don't shoot me. I got into
Blasphemy.
that in South Africa. For some reason, it would be pineapple, banana and a little bit of ham.
They wouldn't let you into Italy now.
Tried it.
You're not going to let into
Funnily
Italy.
enough, we've got one of those pizza ovens at home, and we were making pizzas over the weekend, and we had been just buying the dough from one of the supermarket chains, but then my husband did some Google research and found this place in Italy. So we got the dough in from Italy.
Wow, lovely.
All very fancy. And they came out so thick, and we had a huge marital dispute because I said they just look like American pizzas. There's nothing authentic about that. And he said, no, this is Neapolitana. This is a thick. So I personally thought that the thick sort of cake-like pizza was very American.
Do you know what?
Not for me, but
when I went to Italy a few years ago, the margarita pizza they created out there was just absolutely
so thin,
but beautiful. And
got to be thin.
I think that's the original. I think you can't beat the original. I mean, everyone loves a pepperoni. I love a pepperoni every now and then.
But it's the quality of the ingredients, isn't it? That's why we end up putting loads of stuff on it, because our produce doesn't taste quite as good as Italian. You're probably
exactly.
Right. I must say, I think pizza's the most overrated food. It doesn't agree with me.
No.
I'd say it sort of makes me want to sleep.
But do you know, it's Domino's that does it for me. I have a Domino's. I hate my life for about a week afterwards. Yeah. It's horrible, isn't it?
If you could have 2 slices and leave it at that.
Yes, that's absolutely how it should be. You're right. Yeah. Every other pizza I'm all right with, but Domino's...
OK, well, other companies are available. So thank you to Nikki and to Alex, and we say good morning to the Secretary of State for Work and Pensions, Mel Stride. Thanks for joining us this morning. And a big announcement from your department in relation to pensioners. And you are planning to pay for this through clamping down on tax avoidance. Tell us more.
Yeah, so big announcement, big bold announcement today. We believe that pensioners work hard for all their lives. They should be allowed to retire in dignity and security. That's why we brought in the triple lock. And that's seen huge increases in pensions since 2010, £3,700 increase. But we want to go still further, and that's where the triple lock plus comes in. And what that means is that we will be uprating not just the pensions by the triple lock, but also what's called the personal allowance. That's the amount that you can earn without paying any income tax, also by that same uprating, by the triple lock uprating. And what that will mean is tax cuts now for pensioners throughout the next Parliament. Labour have completely dismissed this, which basically means that during the next Parliament under Labour, what you're going to be seeing is millions of pensioners being dragged into paying income tax, having to fill all those forms in, all that paperwork and red tape, and extra costs to pensioners. We are the party that is on the side.
So instead, you just steal money from people who are out there earning it, and by that I mean through retrospective taxes like IR35.
OK, well, IR35s are inland revenue rules around the nature of the way in which people work and how they should be taxed. What we've actually done for those that are of working age, of course, is to slash national insurance for employees by 1/3. So that means that somebody Eamonn on the
but where are you getting this extra money from
will
to
be
pay
getting
for
a
all
nine,
of this?
getting a nine. Well, I'll come on to that, but just on those that are of working age, they're getting a £900 reduction in their tax as a result of those tax cuts that we've already announced. In terms of how we will fund the tax cuts for pensioners, that's through clamping down on tax avoidance and evasion, £6 billion that we can save by the end of the
IR35 would be part of that, wouldn't it?
Well, IR35, Eamonn, is a completely different matter to pensioners and taxation.
No, but it's not to people who are out there earning, because you go out and you say to them, I know we've said you've been self-employed for all these years, but we're now changing our mind and you're not self-employed. So, you know, you give with one hand and you take with another. Somebody has to pay for these pension rises, and it's going to be working people, people who are window cleaners and freelance nurses and freelance doctors and freelance anything. You don't like that.
OK. So IR35, as you will know, has been around for a long time. It's about defining the nature of the work that somebody's doing and the tax that should therefore apply. That's very different from cutting taxes for pensioners over the coming years, something that Labour have dismissed, and therefore more pensioners will be paying tax for the first time, millions of them, under the Labour Party.
They dismiss IR35, they go and they steal money from people, the Department of Thievery, they go and they say, I know you've earned this, I know you've been taxed in this, but we need to get money, the country's broke, how do we do this? Now, we'll announce we're doing pensions, whatever, but we need to steal money from more working people out there. And if you're freelance, we're coming to get you with IR35. That's what it's about.
No, this has got nothing to do with that. IR35, Eamonn, has been around for many years, and it is a way of assessing the tax regime that is appropriate for somebody given the way that they are working, whether they are genuinely self-employed or actually effectively employed by somebody else. That is completely different from the announcement we're making today, which is that pensioners will have their tax cut throughout the next Parliament. The Labour Party have dismissed this, which means that by 2027,
my point is,
continue with the
pensioners are having their tax cut, but other people are having their tax increased.
If I can just finish.
That's it. Yeah, okay.
No. Those of working age have had a tax cut, Eamonn, worth £900 for the average worker. We've slashed national insurance, employee national insurance,
Can I just
by a full
interject?
third.
Yeah, if I may, Mr. Stride, because you talk about Labour dismissing it, but actually it is a Conservative policy of fiscal drag that will pull pensioners into this bracket, which you are deciding not to do anything about. And Labour are very suspicious about your support of pensioners because they say you have this huge unfunded national insurance cut, and they think that it could affect pensioners in the long run.
Well, this huge national insurance cut being unfunded is a complete myth. We have fully funded the 1/3 reduction that I've referred to that is cutting working age people's taxes on average by £900. I think what you're referring to there is the aspiration that we now have to go still further, because we're a party that believes in lower taxes, to ultimately abolish national insurance altogether. That is something that will take a considerable amount of It will take it. Well, fiscal drag is something different still.
No, but the
and the
point
Labour
is
Party are not saying that they will do anything to thresholds.
I'm asking about what you're doing, and you are
what matters.
Clearly going after
Yes.
the pensioners' vote, and there will be a lot of people of working age who'll never be lucky enough even to have a pension. And you talk about people who've worked hard all their lives, and we've got a number of them in the studio this morning saying, well, it's clear who the Conservatives are batting for in this election.
Well, as I say, those of working age have received a £900 tax cut as a result of cutting national insurance by 1/3, and that is already feeding into working age people's pay packets. We've also, particularly for young people, increased the national living wage now by close on to 10% as of this April. So we are doing things for those that are hardworking and in work, but we do think that pensioners matter. And under Labour, dismissing what we're doing today is simply going to mean that millions of pensioners are going to start paying income tax for the first time, which we don't think is right. They're going to have all the paperwork and the red tape that goes with that, which at that time of life we don't think is right either. We are the party that is on the side of pensioners, and that's why we're announcing these additional tax cuts for pensioners today.
OK, Mel Stride, Secretary of State for Department of Work and Pensions. Thanks very much indeed for your time. Thank you.
The time is 6:56 and time to get the weather update.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In Perth and Kinross, the A9 is closed northbound from the A85 to the Inverell roundabout in Perth after an accident. On the M77 in Glasgow, the outside lane's closed southbound after an accident at junction 2 at Pollock Shores, causing delays. In Lincolnshire, the A16 is closed each way between the Pinchbeck turnoff and the A152 at Spalding after an accident yesterday afternoon. In Cambridgeshire on the A14, the inside lane's closed westbound after an accident between junctions 24B and 23 between Cambridge and Huntingdon. On the M26 in Kent, there are westbound queues towards the M25 because of road works. Queues too on the A249 heading south towards the M2 at Sittingbourne because of road works, and train services on the Isle of Wight aren't running between Ryde, Pierhead and Shanklin, and that is because of a signalling problem. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
It's the biggest cash prize we've given away to date. An incredible £20,000 that you could use however you like. And because it's totally tax-free, every single penny will be in your bank account to do whatever you like with. £20,000 in tax-free cash really could be yours this summer. Hurry, you've got to be in it to win it. For another chance to win £20,000 in tax-free cash, text PRIZE to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB05, PO Box 8690, Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 31st of May. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
GB News is the home of free speech. We were created to champion it, and we deliver it day in, day out.
Free speech allows us all to explore and debate openly the issues most important to us, our families, and of course, the British people.
Having challenging conversations to enlighten each other.
Which is why we hear all sides of the argument.
We are the People's Channel.
We will always stand by the freedom to express yourself.
On TV, radio and online.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, every Sunday at 9:30 when I'll be interviewing the key players in British politics and taking them to task.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial.
With an upcoming election looming over Westminster, now is the time for clear, honest answers.
I agree.
And that's precisely what I'll get.
Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's election channel.
It is about to turn 7 o'clock. It is Tuesday, the 28th of May.
Nice to have you on board. You're tuning into Breakfast here on GB News with Eamonn Holmes and Isabel Webster.
Our top story today, campaign chaos as retiring Tory MP Lucy Allen is suspended for backing reform in her own constituency, whilst the Prime Minister tries to shift focus to his economic credentials, declaring the state pension will never be taxed.
Keir Starmer gets personal. He declares himself a socialist who will always put his country first as Labour sets to show off business credentials.
Humanitarian heartbreak in Rafa as world leaders condemned the Israeli airstrike on Sunday, which killed 45 civilians, being now described by Benjamin Netanyahu as a tragic mistake.
And cash-strapped councils across the country could be sitting on a pot of gold. Hidden art in all their buildings, keeping it away from public view should they be forced to sell it.
And in the sport this morning, the managerial merry-go-round still spinning. We'll find out who's on and who's off. 37-year-old and 14-time winner Rafa Nadal is out of possibly his last French Open, losing in the first round yesterday. And England's cricketers play their second T20 against Pakistan today, but without captain Jos Buttler, who's about to become a dad for the third time.
A showery bank holiday weekend for many of us. There's further wet weather on the way. Join me later for the full forecast with all the details.
So here we are on this Tuesday morning and a lot of politics. And just before we move on, I'd just like to thank people for your support for Ruth and I over the last few days as to the news of our separation, and your support from both of us is very much appreciated. Top story this morning.
Well, despite some bumps on the campaign trail, the Prime Minister is to declare the state pension will never be taxed as he unveils a quadruple lock that will keep income for the elderly safe.
Meanwhile, Labour is set to show off its economic credentials, following on from Keir Starmer's keynote speech yesterday.
The very foundation of any good government is economic security, border security, national security. This is the foundation, the bedrock that our manifesto, our first steps, will be built on. And then on that foundation, with an end to the Tory chaos, we can start to rebuild our country. Step one, economic stability, the very foundation of growth, with tough spending rules that mean we can keep inflation, taxes and mortgages low.
Well, the Shadow Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, has promised to lead the most pro-growth Treasury agenda in the country and has today received the backing of 120 business leaders, writing in the Times newspaper.
Yeah, and yesterday the campaign turned to Scotland. SNP leader John Swinney vowed to kick the Conservatives out of every seat in the country. Here's what he had to say.
I want to bring people in Scotland together. I want to unite people in Scotland on an agenda to make Scotland a better country. And that's about tackling some of the issues that are really significant and damaging for Scotland that we've had in recent years. The impact of austerity, the impact of Brexit, the impact of the cost of living crisis. I want to address those issues and address them through the election.
Well, the Liberal Democrat leader, Ed Davey, will be in Lake Windermere, hopefully not in the lake, but paddleboarding no less, after launching the Lib Dem's campaign in Scotland yesterday.
The people of Scotland have been doubly let down. Let down by an out-of-touch Conservative government in Westminster and taken for granted by an out-of-touch SNP government in Holyrood. They both have to go.
Now, what is paddleboarding?
Well, it's like on a surfboard. You stand up and you use a paddle.
Now, why would an elderly man like him want to...
It's quite popular with men of all ages. It requires good balance, and Lake Windermere is notoriously windy.
So he's going in the water?
I think so, unless he goes on his knees,
so
which is probably not going to be the
why does
best
that
optics.
Benefit him being seen in his undies?
Well, just the same as Sunak yesterday.
What didn't benefit him? What didn't benefit him?
They're obviously being advised that they need to look sporty and they need to look
And that's probably where they're going wrong. Let's get the thoughts of Spiked Online's Deputy Editor Fraser Myers and political commentator Andy Williams. Gentlemen, Fraser, you first of all. What do you think of, what's his name, in his undies on a paddleboard?
Mr. Davey.
Yeah, it's probably an attempt to look young, fit and vigorous, but I don't think anyone thinks of those adjectives when you're thinking about Ed Davey. I don't know who advises politicians that they have to do these stunts. I guess, they think that just simply having their picture in the papers or, a nice visual backdrop for the news is good enough. But I think to most of us, it just looks bizarre.
You see, Andy, I can honestly say to you, I don't know anybody who would vote what's his name? Ed Davey, because he's on a paddleboard. You know what I mean? He gives a speech, he gives a bit of rhetoric, he gives a policy. Yes, maybe. What difference does it make if he's on a paddleboard or not? Why do these people think this is important to us?
Well, I think firstly, the Lib Dems are famous for their stunts. They've carved out this niche for themselves that they always want to do the sort of the wackiest thing, have the biggest hammer, have a giant clock, be paddleboarding. I suppose there's a sort of a narrow element to which it helps them to stand out because it's difficult for the Lib Dems to come up with anything that's going to get them significant airtime. But does it really matter? No, I don't think so. I think this election is about two things. It's a referendum on 14 years of Conservative government, and it's about whether people are convinced that Labour can do the job.
Although the Lib Dems, I suppose, will be fighting to regain some trust after the tuition fees fiasco and also to try and probably become the third party in Parliament again, where SNP.
Well, how's him on a paddleboard?
That will be their ambition. What about Rishi Sunak's ambition, Fraser? Because it's been a bumpy few days. He doesn't even need to fall off a paddleboard to, make a splash, does he? Yesterday, one of his own MPs, outgoing MPs, admittedly backing the Reform candidate in their constituency. We've seen all the reaction to his conscription plans with infighting about who would be penalised, would parents be having to pay for that? You've got all of the upset around MPs who are disgruntled and not wanting to go out on the campaign trail. And even Zach Goldsmith, poster boy of the Tories once upon a time, saying that the majority of Tory MPs are going to lose their job in July.
And Zach Goldsmith has even hinted that Rishi Sunak should go off to California and leave us alone. I mean, the tensions are quite extraordinary. You've seen clearly this campaign is being directed from the top, from actually quite a small coterie of advisors. The national service policy is a case in point. This was kind of sprung on MPs out of nowhere. There's been no discussion or debate about it. And in fact, as Steve Baker, who, is the Northern Ireland minister, he said even relevant ministers weren't consulted about this. So you can see how that is going to create tensions and acrimony with the MPs that suddenly now have to, defend a policy. Ministers in particular, they're under a kind of cabinet collective responsibility to defend this policy, even though they've not actually had a say over it. So I think possibly more splits to come if this is the way the campaign is going to be directed from the top.
Well, it's being directed towards older voters, of course, with the pension concessions and the idea that they think conscription would appeal to older people. Do you think, Isabel, that many young people would be in favour of conscription?
Well, I had lots of parent friends over the weekend saying, who's this aimed at? It's not aimed at young people, necessarily. I mean, a lot of people want to go out and do gap years, but they want to decide their own destiny.
So it's aimed at old people to say that we should do this with young people?
Well, I suspect that.
Yeah, and I think it seems as if it appeals mostly to people who are looking to vote Reform. So those are the voters that Rishi Sunak is trying to claw back. Perhaps people who voted Tory in 2019 and think that the government has gone in the wrong direction, they're losing patience with it on immigration in particular. Those are the kind of voters it seems to be appealed to, rather than the majority of people.
I think, Andy, it shows a rather strange view that Rishi Sunak has on how this country should be run, that we all should be made to do mathematics to A-level standard, for instance, and then when we've done that, we're going to be chucked into the Army, the Navy or the Air Force for a year. rather strange, I would have thought.
I think it's tone deaf. I think it misreads the mood of the country. And most importantly, ultimately, politics is about priorities. It's about where do you prioritise spending your time and your money? Where do you invest? And if you look at this national service policy, which is going to cost £2.5 billion a year and that nobody seems to want, if you look at this policy being announced today on the state pension, which is another £2.5 billion a year, all of these are aimed at older voters in a very narrow, very exclusive way. And I understand that the over 70s is the only demographic where the Tories have a lead. But in that case, they should be reaching out to a much wider pool of voters. You can't win a general election by just getting people over the age of 70 to vote for you. And I agree. I think it completely misreads what people are looking for, which is forward-thinking policies, not backward-looking.
It's interesting. Starmer, giving his speech yesterday, admitted that, yes, he gets the sense that a lot of people want a change, no more Tories, but they're actually just disillusioned with politics in general. And I think that's going to be a big challenge for all political parties in this election, is actually getting people out to vote, which is perhaps why the Tories have calculated at least one group can be relied upon to turn up in July. Speaking of Labour, Fraser, I just want to talk about this letter. Quite a coup for Rachel Reeves. I mean, she's clearly a big hitter in the city herself, a Bank of England economist once upon a time. 120 business leaders coming out and backing them. And we're talking about people, broader sort of array of people, as the chef, Tom Kerridge. We've got the former Heathrow boss, John Holland Kay. We've got the boss of Iceland, Sir Malcolm, who actually backed Cameron back at the last election. And then the Wikipedia founder, Jimmy Wales. So this is a blow for the Conservatives, isn't it?
I think so, and this is part of Labour and Rachel Reeves' campaign to make themselves appear credible on the economy, to make them seem on the side of business and stability. I think there are dangers in that, though, coming in the next sort of 5 years. One of the problems has been that there is a kind of Treasury orthodoxy in this country that has led to actually quite low growth, low productivity, and unfortunately Rachel Reeves is saying we back that, we're not going to stray away from that. There's a sense that they don't want to do anything too bold or radical that might frighten the horses, but actually, this country does need economic change. The voters are ready for change, and unfortunately Labour isn't really offering any of that, other than a sort of superficial change at the top. It doesn't seem as if there's a big departure in terms of economic policy, and the economy is, the number one issue.
Gentlemen, I'd like to find out from both of you. I'll begin with Andy, first of all. Is there anything that is being said so far, and we're in very early days, that is exciting you, that is actually making you say, here is a party that is doing something to draw new voters, to brighten up the whole political landscape? Is there anything exciting you out there, Andy?
I would say I would like to see Labour being more front-footed and a bit more bold. I understand why they're not doing that, because they have such an enormous lead. But I do think they have ambitious plans on things like green investment and on actually investing in the long-term growth of the economy. So I think if Labour could pursue that narrative a bit more, I'd like to see that. As for the Tories, I mean, it's been a disaster so far. There's no two ways about it.
And Fraser, anything enraging you? I know that for a lot of people, the private school policy for Labour has been highly controversial. Anything irritating you so far?
I think more irritating is, I think, the lack of choice at this election. This is don't know, none of the above elections so far. Labour are doing well by default, it seems, because of the complete collapse of the Conservative Party. But, people are right not to feel a sense of enthusiasm about it, and that's completely understandable. And that will create problems for the Labour Party. I can't see them having a long honeymoon, when they come in, and even if they have a large majority in Parliament, if that is disconnected from the feeling of the country, then we could see some serious instability coming down the line.
Folks, let us know what you think. There's the address on screen, gbnews.com/your say. Andy and Fraser, really appreciate your input. Thank you both very much indeed.
Now, here's something that really enrages voters. Potholes.
Yeah.
And a big row has erupted over the maintenance of a public footpath that borders Hull and East Yorkshire, which is filled with potholes that are several inches deep.
Right, so these are a problem both for those who walk down the lane and for residents living at the bottom of the lane, as Anna Riley will tell you.
This medieval public footpath in East Yorkshire is popular with walkers, but a 700-metre section of the lane in Cottingham is peppered with potholes. On rainy days like this, it's prone to flooding. Trevor Saunders uses the lane every day to access his property, and he's been asking the council to repair it for decades.
You'll see on your left 3 or 4 potholes that the council say are acceptable. I'm going to stand in one for you, and you can say, imagine if you was disabled and walking down here and you happen to go in here, you'd be in trouble. Okay.
So just explain to me, it's nearly over your...
I don't go any further because it's deeper than this, and anybody of age or a disability would be in serious trouble. They'd fall over.
The uneven surface is problematic for vehicles as well as pedestrians.
It's like being in a rocking chair, up and down. It will be damaging my car. It will cost me money.
In some parts of the lane, the potholes are a foot deep. The fight to fix them has consumed the life of 74-year-old Trevor.
It's continually on my mind, and it's continually I have to keep trying to get the councils to do their duties to this footpath. I want them to do their legal duty to this very, very popular and heavily used footpath.
In response, East Riding of Yorkshire Council said the public walking along the route should expect conditions similar to other public rights of way in a countryside setting. Repairs to support traffic over and above walking for those who have private vehicular rights are not the council's responsibility. The route meets a reasonable standard for this type of path, and complaints from the public remain very low. Trevor now plans to crowdfund for legal action to get the lane fixed. Anna Riley, GB News, Cottingham.
Thank you, Anna. But the thing is, they don't care. Authorities don't care. They've got bigger holes than that one to fill, and they get away with it. And now no one expects their holes to be filled, so they stay dangerous and awful and ghastly and whatever.
Well, if you'd like to support Trevor's campaign to get the potholes sorted, you can head to the article on the GB News website, and there'll be a full link to his GoFundMe page there.
Yeah, that would be good if something did happen, but I doubt that it will. And once that becomes the norm, and it is the norm that every road in the land is a disgrace, and they don't have to fill in the holes, we accept it and they get away with it. But you've got to work out what you want your money to go to. And one of the things I think we should be thinking of, I mean, Starmer talks about people doing maths till A level, and what else is he on about there? Or Sunak, and what's he on about? Conscription. Oh, God's sake. Why doesn't he get people out cleaning graffiti off walls? Why doesn't he get people out clearing up litter
all these
around the
prisoners
place?
that they can't continue their sentences in jail. Well, why don't they continue their sentences at home with a tag, but doing, public
Do
service?
something useful. You know, all of this talk, all this rubbish from politicians, so much that needs doing. And when you look at it, it's just disgraceful. I mean, I think the litter situation in this country, how we educate young people,
It's not the young people. My kids did a litter pick last night. They went out, they needed a bit of exercise, they'd been bored in the afternoon. Husband took them for a walk, filled a whole bin bag.
Yeah, but when I say young people, I mean people in their 20s or people in their 30s or whatever, who definitely, there's a whole couple of generations missed there, who've got no litter message at all, who've got no responsibility on that front, and who just seem to get away with this. And it really shouldn't be tolerated. Litter shouldn't be tolerated, because I think if you bring down your neighbourhood, then you bring down everybody's personality and everybody's character and everybody's reputation as a result. Your views on litter, let us know. Get in touch with us this morning And that the usual way, gbnews.com/your say. So it'll be good to have your views on that. And you see, that was called Snuff Mill Lane.
Yeah.
So is there actually things like snuff mills? There were snuff mills.
They made snuff in mills, yeah.
What is snuff made from?
Oh, why do you ask me these
questions? Does it make you
sneeze? I like to have the answer to things. I don't know.
Does it make you sneeze, snuff?
I think so. My grandpa used to have it in his little silk box.
What is the purpose of snuff?
You put it in your pipe, don't you? It's kind of like tobacco stuff that you smoke, isn't it?
You smoke it?
I think so, yeah. Stick it in your pipe and smoke it.
But you don't sort of sniff it and then sneeze? Snuff, I don't know, but...
It's a smokeless tobacco, apparently. There you go. Anyway, these are the sorts of things that fascinate me. And we will find out definitively what that means. But with the time at 7:20, let's take a look at some of the other stories coming into the newsroom this morning.
OK. Ireland, Norway and Spain will recognise the Palestinian state today. Palestinian flags to be flown over Leinster House, which is the home of the Irish Parliament, and the Palestinian mission in Dublin is to be upgraded to an embassy, and an ambassador will be appointed.
Shop inflation levels are back to normal, according to figures published by the British Retail Consortium. It's eased to the lowest level since November 2021, after retailers cut the price of big purchases such as furniture and TVs. Unusually wet weather has also been credited with helping to ease prices.
Teenagers have better relationships with their parents than 10 years ago, according to a study carried out by the Economic and Social Research Institute. It found that mothers and fathers reported much lower levels of conflict over time and were more likely to explain to their children what they'd done wrong rather than shouting.
And tornadoes and storms have left at least 19 dead across 4 states in the US. Homes have been destroyed, hundreds of thousands left without power in Texas, Arkansas, Oklahoma and Kentucky. And more than 110 million Americans are under severe weather warnings.
So to avoid conflict now with your children, you have to explain to them, not shout at them.
Yeah.
To impose discipline. Good luck. Good luck with that one. Anyway, here's your weather. Good morning, Ellie Glazer.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning and welcome to your latest GB News weather from the Met Office. So after a showery weekend for many of us, there is further rain on the way as we head through the rest of today. This arriving into the west through the early hours of this morning and continues to push its way northwards as we head through this afternoon. But it will be a bit of a brighter start across parts of Scotland and northern England through this morning. That rain continues to turn quite heavy in places, particularly across western parts of Scotland, although we could see some showers developing across parts of Northern Ireland, central and southern parts of England. There could be some hail and thunder mixed in here too. Temperatures round about average for the time of year, 17 or 18 degrees across the south, but definitely feeling cooler under that cloud and rain. Through the rest of Tuesday evening, the rain continues to push its way northwards across parts of Scotland. The very far northeast perhaps getting away with some dry conditions, but that rain turning heavy in places, and those blustery, thundery showers continuing across parts of Northern Ireland and into southern parts of Scotland through this evening. The showers also continuing for northern parts of and eastern parts of England, but further south and further west, we will see outbreaks of rain continuing to push their way eastwards overnight tonight and into the early hours of Wednesday morning. Showers gradually easing generally, though, through the early hours of the morning, and there will be some clear spells between those showers, so perhaps turning a little chilly in places, but quite widely, those temperatures holding up into the double figures into the early hours of Wednesday morning. Around 12, 13, perhaps even 14 degrees in places, but perhaps a little lower under those clearer spells. It does mean that Wednesday starts a little drier and brighter for many of us, though. There'll be some sunshine as we head through the morning, perhaps a little cloudier, though, across parts of Scotland. But as we head in towards Wednesday afternoon, heavy showers developing again. The heavier showers once more across parts of eastern Scotland, northeastern England, but almost anywhere could see a shower through the afternoon, again with some hail and thunder mixed in too. Perhaps a little warmer than Tuesday with highs of 19 or 20 degrees and a little cooler further north.
That warm feeling inside. From Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Right here is an important announcement. £20,000 has got to be won, and it has got to be won this week.
Yeah.
It is our Great British giveaway, and it's coming to an end this week.
Yeah, we have to give it away. The lines are going to close on Friday. Here are all the details that you need to make the cash yours.
It's the final week to see how you can win a whopping £20,000 cash. And because it's totally tax-free, every single penny will be in your bank account to do whatever you like with. £20,000 in tax-free cash really could be yours this summer. Hurry, as lines close on Friday. You've got to be in it to win it. For another chance to win £20,000 in tax-free cash, text WIN to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB05, PO Box 8690, Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Artwork in certain city halls.
I think it's an interesting story.
What?
I think this is a
I think it's a very
really
interesting story. I think it's a very interesting story. And I know, like, I've been in many town halls and city halls and whatever, and there's a lot of artwork there. And I think to myself, well, why is there? Why do we really need these aggrandizement sort of portraits of fat men on the wall?
Should these councils be selling off their potential artistic pot of gold? We'll be looking into that in just a moment.
Who would buy it?
Galleries.
You've seen some of them.
Private owners.
Watch back after this.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Well, Welsh farmer Gareth Wyn-Jones is a first-language Welsh speaker and joins us now. Gareth, I mean, a lot of people will be thinking, hang on, this guy is a Welsh teacher. He speaks English. He knew what was on the parking ticket. He's just trying to make a point. He's being a prat, isn't he?
No, hey, come on, mate. I'm a first-language Welsh. It's important that we watch after our language and, you know, that everything's bilingual. For us in Wales, you wouldn't go to France and expect your ticket to be in English, would you? You know, English is the most spoken language, but let's watch after these small languages. It's part of our cultural. So, you know, I take my hat off to the guy. Fair play to him for go out and to fight this. But what it's done is put it onto the mainstream media, and you're talking about it, even that you're calling them that. You know, at least we're having a discussion about it, and it's putting the Welsh language in the forefront. And, so, you know, Gareth, speaking Welsh is important.
Yeah, so Gareth, this is a matter of principle. Is there a sense that the Welsh language is being eradicated in Wales? Is this something that the Welsh people need to rise up against?
Well, Welsh Government are trying to, you know, bring a lot more Welsh speaking into our daily life and teach people how to speak Welsh. Well, everything should be bilingual then. And I think, you know, it should start with government. So government should be putting pressure on these companies to make sure everything is bilingual. So I get behind this guy. Fair play to him. It's a good stance, and it puts it in the public eye. Let's have everything in both languages, especially Welsh, because that's my first language. And I'm
you know what? If I was Welsh, I think I would agree with you. I think I would agree with you, Gareth.
It depends if you come from Wrexham.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Really interesting debate, and we've just been hashing this out in the advert there and have slightly different takes on it. But cash-strapped councils across the country are sitting on a treasure trove of artwork, only a third of it currently on display to the public.
Isabel, I think that's a good idea.
What?
You think that's a good idea?
I don't think we should be selling off all of our cultural heritage because our finances have been mismanaged.
It's not our cultural heritage.
Otherwise we could just
I tell you what our cultural heritage is. It's about keeping libraries open or filling potholes or doing the things that councils should be doing, not sticking artwork, or most of its photographs are paintings of former mayors.
Well, that won't have much value, but the stuff that's of value, I think, should be held in great regard and shouldn't be sold off because they've mismanaged their finances. That's my opinion. Taxpayers Alliance
How many town halls have you been in? I've been, and I've looked at the walls and thought, what a waste.
Yeah.
That my tax money, my, what is it, local authority money, is going on that. What a lot of rubbish. Anyway, we've got Elliot Keck here. Elliot is head of campaigns at the Taxpayers Alliance. So, Elliot, there is pressure on councils to cash this stuff in.
Yeah, I think pressure, particularly from us, because I think it's outrageous that only 28% of an art collection worth somewhere around £1.5 billion, albeit we're not entirely clear because a lot of councils don't know the value of their art collection or won't provide that value. And only 28% of that very, very large, very expensive collection is actually available to the public, to taxpayers, to residents, for people to see. So I think they need to look at that chunk that they're not putting on for the public and start thinking, OK, is that really an appropriate use of taxpayers'
Elliot, I
money?
mean, you could say that about any art gallery. You could go to the National Gallery or the National Portrait Gallery and say only a third of their collection is on display. That's normal. And I do think you probably, I don't know, maybe underestimating you, but have a background in finance. I personally object to monetising works of art all the time. Yes, councils are short on money.
It's not their job.
But I do believe there is a role for our British culture, and if we sell off everything...
in the museums, not in the town halls.
But they're talking about these museums, some of which are owned by the councils, are they not?
They're talking about council buildings, by and large.
So it is important to say there are some examples of councils where they have they own an art collection that's in part of an art museum, so that's possibly a slightly separate conversation, but most of this is simply art collections of councils. Take Cambridgeshire, where they own about 70,000 pieces of art, but only have about 17 on display to the public. And yes, you're right, art galleries will traditionally have only a portion of their collection on display, but that's an art gallery. That's an organisation set up, founded and run for that art
What next? Are you going to say we need to strip Parliament of its works of art?
Yes.
And sell it off to pay for the
Yes,
NHS?
we do.
No, I just think there's a place for these beautiful works of art.
Which seems to be in somebody's attic somewhere.
It's about cultural heritage. It's about art. It's about masterpieces.
Again, I think that when it comes to Parliament, that is obviously quite a distinct, historic, unique institution. Whereas a local district council that's responsible for filling in potholes and collecting bins, I'm not really sure they should be in the world of collecting.
Personally, I think there'd be better ways that they could sort out the pothole problems. As we've been discussing, we've got a problem with prisons being overcrowded. Get people out there sorting out the potholes. We don't have to sell off our artwork. Do we want to be in communist Russia or China and be in porta cabins without any beautiful works of art from hundreds of years ago, which is part of our rich heritage in Great Britain?
Well, I think, listen, your communist countries probably weren't great at filling in the potholes, and I think, likewise, if you drive down Britain's roads at the moment, they're absolutely covered in potholes. I think people's bins aren't being collected. There's an absolutely cascade of problems that are growing in local councils, and it concerns me the number of staff that they must have that are there to manage these art collections. Art collections are not easy things to manage and maintain, and I find it very, very concerning that such a small percentage of an art collection worth £1.5 billion is on display to the public.
So you find that the cumulative art is probably worth about £1.5 billion.
If that's the figure based on what councils have provided us, but a lot of councils have said we have tens of thousands of works of art, but we either won't or can't provide the total value. So that will be an understatement. It's likely to be tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of pounds more.
Why don't they just get the artwork on display, says somebody on Your Say this morning, rather than selling it off? Get out and put them out on display.
I think that's a reasonable compromise. I think town halls, can be illustrious places, and having a few works of art is not. I'm not against that. And if there was a mayor that's been around for decades, painted by the local artist, I think that's fair enough. But we are talking about the average art collection is £8.7 million. That's a pretty hefty art collection. We have one council, Durham Council, that has 500,000 works of art. That's the same as the Louvre in Paris in quantity, if not possibly in quality. Many of these councils have art collections way bigger than, for example, the National Gallery in London.
But, Elliot, what can people actually do about that? Because if I was presented with the facts and figures on my local council, I would want to go down and speak to someone and say, what are you doing with this stuff? How are you monetarising it?
Well, I think that's a very good idea. They should, residents should call up their local councillor, email their local councillor and say, why on earth is only 25% of my local district council's art collection on display? I think that would be a very good step.
This one from DA, he says, this smacks of Gordon Brown selling our gold reserves. That worked out well.
Well, see, I just don't understand this. I do not see the value or worth. I like art myself. I can collect art. I'll tell you this. You buy art at one price, a high price, and you sell it if you want to go to an auction or anything like that, and you have to practically give it away for anybody to take it. I just do not understand. It is not a council's responsibility to collect art.
Yeah, and we've also seen councils gamble on the property market or gamble in trying to set up energy companies in the case of Nottingham. And every time that councils get involved in things that are really well outside their purview, they tend to go horribly, miserably wrong. And I think that's particularly concerning. And I think, councils that aren't even fulfilling their basic statutory responsibilities often need to look at themselves and think, OK, if we can't fulfil our basic duties to our residents, our taxpayers, why are we handling these art collections worth millions, tens of millions of pounds?
OK, Elliot Keck, Head of Campaigns at Taxpayers Alliance, thank you very much indeed. Keep your thoughts at home coming in. This one from Dawn, she says, that's always the answer, sell off. But once sold off, you only have that money once. Perhaps they should have art museums charging a fee to view and gaining a regular revenue. Always love it when we come up with alternative solutions to the problem.
But they're not alternative solutions. You're just not understanding. Go down to the town hall or the city hall or whatever and see what's on the walls. And then say, where's all the stuff that's not hanging on the walls? And I'll say, oh, yeah, it might be upstairs in the attic or whatever. And they go and have a look. They've got stuff that they don't know they have. And why do they have it in the first place? And how is it benefiting my life? Answer, it is not.
Yeah, but if they could generate a revenue from it, then everyone will be happy. Let us know what you think. We disagree, as usual. gbnews.com/Your Say. Paul Coit up next with all the sport.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In Perth and Kinross, the A9 is closed northbound from the A85 to the Inverelmond roundabout in Perth after an accident. Train services are suspended between Doncaster and Cleethorpes for an investigation. In Lincolnshire, the A16 is closed each way between the Pinchbeck turnoff and the A152 at Spalding after an accident yesterday afternoon. In Cambridgeshire on the A14, there's a lane closed westbound after an accident between junctions 24B and 23 between Cambridge and Huntingdon. In London on the A40, it's down to a single lane each way where overnight roadworks have overrun. Just off the North Circular at Hanger Lane with queues from Northolt and from the Greenford flyover. On the M26 in Kent, there are westbound queues towards the M25 because of roadworks, and on the Isle of Wight, train services aren't running between Ryde, Pierhead and Shanklin, and that's because of a signalling problem. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
We're GB News, and we come from a proud tradition of British journalism.
That's why I'm so excited to be here. It's something so new.
The first news channel to be launched in Britain in over 30 years.
Launched to represent the views of the British people.
To go where other broadcasters refuse to go.
How did you find out about the story in the first place?
Launched with one aim.
To be the fearless champion of Britain.
It's an absolutely fantastic atmosphere here.
This is GB News.
GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News is Britain's election channel.
And when the big stories break, we're tackling them on Britain's newsroom. When we disagree, and we disagree a lot, it's even livelier than normal.
We don't disagree that much.
We do. His comedy, though, is revolting. I knew her, and unlike you. That explains Beverly Turner's temperament.
It's a bit frosty in here, isn't it?
He'll have one of me one day.
For dartball practice. Britain's newsroom on GB News. Weekdays, 9:30 a.m.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threat and so on.
Our job is to do what's in the best interest of our country.
You made my argument for me. My guest and I tackle the issues that really matter with a sharp take on every story.
I'm hearing it up and down the country.
That was a beginning, not an end.
Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry. Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
Today is Tuesday, May the, what's that?
28th.
28th, 2024. Paul Coit, whose birthday is it today?
Well, that's for you to find out and tell me how old they are.
Oh, right,
it's time, okay, so this is bizarre. So you can have a wry smile on your face because it's 3 Manchester City players who all have their birthday on the same day.
Okay.
And all lost against your Manchester United.
Oh, I won't know any of them.
Oh, I think you will.
Okay.
Well, if you don't, I know Isabel will.
Okay.
All play for England. Let's go with the first one. I'll tell you who they are. First one is, please. It's a Manchester City player. There are 3 of them. 3 of them all celebrating their birthday today. There we are. That's Kyle Walker.
Oh, of course,
It's the most bizarre picture of Kyle Walker. Oh, there we are. There's another nicer picture of Kyle Walker. How old do you think Kyle Walker?
Is he the one with lots of children with different women?
That's the one.
Yes.
That's
okay.
Some would say that great player that plays for England. Some
well,
would
I just
play
see him in the tabloids.
one...
Yeah, as I'm not a big back pages girl. Okay, so
fine.
I'm going to go 26.
26?
No, he's 35.
34 is the answer.
Oh.
Okay,
34 is
right.
just a warm-up. Let's go with another one. We've got another one here. Another Man City player. So we've already got Kyle Walker, who, by the way, is the oldest of the 3. So who else have we got?
Oh, Phil.
Phil Foden.
I think, do you know what? I think that lad needs commented on. He's such a good pro, good, dedicated guy, very skillful guy.
Yep.
How old is he, though? 22.
22 for Phil Foden, Footballer of the Year. What do you think about the shaved eyebrow there, Isabel? I was thinking of doing that myself, you know, just...
Oh, I'm not a big fan of the
across
shaved
there.
eyebrow. It looks like somebody did
Had
that
an
as a
accident.
prank whilst he was asleep. You know, drunk at a party and his friends shaved it off, but he probably thinks it looks good.
So
What
Eamonn's
do I know?
22. What do you say for Foden?
Yeah, he's got to be young. 21.
24.
Oh!
24 today.
Right.
One more. OK, one more. Other Man City. I think what are the chances? All playing the same team, all with the same birthday. John Stones.
Well, why are we concentrating on losers this morning?
Well, it just happens to be their birthday. That's all it is.
Okay,
If it was
okay.
Manchester United, I'd be all over that.
Well, I just think you should be concentrating on the winners.
Yeah. OK.
I'd say here...
John Stones, how old?
35.
35?
Yeah, I'm going to go...
Lower.
Oh, OK, thank
Quite
you.
a bit lower.
OK, 30.
30 is the right answer.
Boom!
Isabel, you have managed to win.
He's had a
Manchester
hard
City
paper
birthday.
round, hasn't he?
Someone said that to me the other day. No wonder what they were talking about now, I realise. And I was like, oh, that's nice. Yeah, you don't think he looks good for his age, John Stones?
30?
Yeah, 30.
No, I thought he was much older.
I think he looks fine.
He's been around for a long time, then. I suppose that's what it is. Anyway, let's go to the French Open.
Let's do a little bit of the French Open. Rafa Nadal, quick word on Rafa Nadal. He got knocked out in the first round of the French Open yesterday. Now, the thing is, injuries, 37 years old, knocking on a bit, so therefore, is this going to be his last French Open? Anyway, he was asked about this. And, see, I don't know whether you've ever heard me talk about my body being a jungle. I've always said that for years. I've always said my body is a jungle. I thought I was the only one, and this is what Rafa Nadal had to say.
I cannot tell you if I will be here or not will be in 1 month and a half, because, you know, my body have been a jungle for 2 years, so, and you don't know what to expect. You know, I wake up one day and I found a snake beating me, another day a tiger. You know, it's have been a big fighting with all the things that I went through. No, but the dynamic is positive. The last few weeks. No, so I felt ready. I mean, I felt ready. I was able to. I think tomorrow I will be ready to play again if I have to, but I will not have to.
Oh, Rafa. So woke up one morning, there was a snake.
Snake, and then there was a tiger.
Did you experience that?
Well, it's my life. It is. Yeah, more snakes than tigers, unfortunately. But there you go.
Body's a jungle.
It is. Body's a jungle. So anyway, he probably won't be playing in Wimbledon, but he will be playing in the Olympics doubles. With
you heard it here first. Thank you very much indeed. 7:45 is the time. The paper's next.
GB News is the home of free speech. We were created to champion it, and we deliver it day in, day out.
Free speech allows us all to explore and debate openly the issues most important to us, our families, and of course, the British people.
Having challenging conversations to enlighten each other.
Which is why we hear all sides of the argument.
We are the People's Channel.
We will always stand by the freedom to express yourself.
On TV, radio and online.
This is GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Britain's Newsroom. Weekday mornings from 9:30.
The Eurovision, according to figures out this morning, had its most disastrous night to date because viewing figures were down by 2.5 million.
So the BBC had a drag queen on telling everyone that she was boycotting it.
Who was boycotting it?
Someone called Crystal, who came on the Newsnight to say that she was boycotting her North London party because of Israel. So maybe that's why the figures are down.
They cancelled some Eurovision parties in gay bars in Soho.
Exactly. So I wonder whether that's what did it.
North London party.
I think the whole of Dalston basically not tuning in is what's caused this massive drop in ratings because of the whole controversy around Israel. I have to say, a lot of those performers needed to go and see a hygienist. I mean, that man who was the Irish entry, who's supposed to be a satanic witch. She does pop witchery or something.
She screeched.
And she screeched a lot, and then took her clothes off. Yeah. And then there was a sort of devil man who was gyrating around her, who who obviously hadn't cleaned his teeth in years.
That was the vodka break.
Okay, fine.
That was the vodka break. But I went and got.
And I thought the Israeli entry. I mean, I didn't really like the song. I liked her dress.
Well, I just voted for it because
I thought the choreography was awful.
I hated the way she was besieged in a hotel room.
But I did also think that the Ukraine entry was quite interesting because I know that the Israeli entry got into trouble for referencing the October 7th attacks, and she had to sort of rewrite her stuff because you're not allowed to mention the war or anything like that, which is fine. But then the Ukraine entry was very war. I mean, they had kind of gunfire coming in over her.
The whole thing, there was double standards.
There was quite a lot of that,
I mean, the people outside, the queers of Palestine.
Are we going to carry on paying for it, though? Because, I mean, the BBC pays the lion's share of it. That's us.
Yeah.
And we do spectacularly every year.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, every Sunday at 9:30 when I'll be interviewing the key players in British politics and taking them to task.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial.
With an upcoming election looming over Westminster, now is the time for clear, honest answers.
I agree.
And that's precisely what I'll get.
Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's election channel.
we've got Alex Armstrong, we've got Nikki Hodgson, they've got the papers. Alex, you want to talk about Rachel Reeves?
Yes. So we're hearing today that Rachel Reeves, obviously, they're coming up very pro-business at the moment, Labour. They're trying to seem more competent and really, they had that letter, 120 chiefs of business signed recently to say that they back the Labour Party as the party of fiscal responsibility. But on top of that, there's some things that people may be a little less happy about, which are her plans to give more fiscal power to the OBR. That means that they'll essentially be able to...
budget responsibility.
Correct.
Liz Truss famously wanted to axe.
Correct, yeah, which you could say is a dividing line, perhaps, between some of the Conservatives and Labour. Now, a lot of people are worried about this because they consider these sort of quangos to have too much power as it is. I mean, we've already seen Jeremy Hunt's given a lot of responsibility to the OBR, and they lean a lot on those. And the reason why Rachel Reeves is saying that she wants to do this is because she wants to take politics out of the economy. Now, other people argue that the OBR is inherently full of political people, so you're essentially handing the reins of economic power to a bunch of unelected officials, which I think concerns a lot of people at home. I'm very much against that. I do think that politicians should have the ultimate responsibility for budgets. But, of course, Labour's trying to come out with this very pro-worker, very pro-business agenda at the moment. I wonder what other people think about that.
Well, I think it's fascinating that people from a broad range, like the founder of Iceland, who previously backed the Tories, have come out in the Times today publicly, as you say, backing them. You've got the former boss of Heathrow, you've got the Wikipedia founder, you've got people like the chef, Tom Kerridge. I mean, these are clearly people who just assume that Labour is going to win the next election and are trying to, I don't know, whether curry favour or whether, lobbying is something in all of this. But it does feel as though the shift from business has definitely moved away from the Conservatives in recent months. We saw it, I think, probably quite prominently during conference season, when Labour conference was just an absolute hive of business and where all the bigwigs were going for all the sort of side meetings as well. But let's see how it all plays out, whether or not Labour will indeed be able to balance the union pressures, worker pressures and rights with all of that.
I mean, I do worry about more bureaucrats having control of our country. It does concern me. I do think politicians need to have more accountability.
But I think there is a role for the OBR, absolutely, and they need to be consulted pre-budget, etc., because look at the chaos that happened with the Trust budget.
Do agree.
Nikki, you want to talk about Martha's Rule, and this is a talk about patient safety and the right that families have to a second opinion.
Yeah, so this is off the back of the very sad case of Martha Mills, who was 13 and died of sepsis. She's the daughter of Mary Mills, one of the Guardian editors. And what they're asking for is that if you have a patient, a relative in hospital, and their condition is deteriorating, that you can ask for a second opinion of medics in the hospital to come and, check that person is OK or isn't OK. Because that's basically what would have helped in the case of Martha. She had sepsis in it. She really went downhill quickly, and the team that Mary P and her husband were talking to kept saying, oh, she's OK, we've checked on her, she's OK. But another part, they were overstretched, etc., and they feel like medics, some other medics coming in with fresh eyes would have been able to make that judgment. So this scheme is being run out at 143 hospitals. And, it will create those two teams that can take care of patients in the very, very difficult event that they're deteriorating. Because let's not forget, it's not about overriding medics' opinions. It's about families knowing their own relatives.
I think the theory is fantastic. I just don't see how practical this can be and how an already overstretched hospital can parachute in a fresh set of eyes.
Well,
I mean, that sounds wonderful. But where are we going to magic these people from? Our doctors are already completely burnt out.
Well, what they're saying is that they'll take them from critical care teams that are already in the hospitals, just in separate teams. That's the idea behind it. So let's see if it can be implemented, because it is a terrible story of what happened.
But you see, the thing about this is people expecting a private system from a public system. I mean, they're expecting private standards for something that isn't geared up to deal with that. And this is just going to be more stress and strain on a breaking NHS.
Maybe it is, but I guess if you've lost a child to something that they didn't have to be lost from, you'll try and do anything to...
Yes, I can understand that legacy.
I'm guessing that's where it's coming from. Really.
We are out of time, but I want to end on a really positive story. And this one, Nikki, inside The Guardian, we were all I mean, I don't know if we were all, but I certainly was really upset to see the Sycamore Gap tree, not least because I was a massive Prince of Thieves fan when I was growing up. I must have watched that film
Me too, actually.
a million times. But anyway, tell us the story, Nikki, because there is a positive in all of this.
Yeah, so something really sweet. So the first successful seedling from the Sycamore Gap tree that was felled has been gifted to King Charles by the National Trust. And it was in commemoration of something called Celebration Day, which I'd never heard of, which apparently remembers those who are no longer with us, which includes that tree. But the idea is that he's going to have it, and hopefully it will, it will blossom and grow. And it's just really, it's like positive. It's one of many seedlings. There are some others that have been given to other organisations, but he gets the first.
I'd love to see it be replanted where it was. I think wouldn't that be a lovely story if the king went and replanted it, if it's possible?
Well, maybe that's his intention.
I hope so. That'd be great, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's such a shame to see that tree fall, and it was a terrible thing to do. But
Unbelievable. Yeah, absolute act of vandalism.
OK, we'll replant you guys again in 40 minutes. Thank you very much indeed. We say hello, good morning now. Here's the weather with Ellie Glaser.
Morning.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning and welcome to your latest GB News weather from the Met Office. So after a showery weekend for many of us, there is further rain on the way as we head through the rest of today. This arriving into the west through the early hours of this morning and continues to push its way northwards as we head through this afternoon. But it will be a bit of a brighter start across parts of Scotland and northern England through this morning. That rain continues to turn quite heavy in places, particularly across western parts of Scotland, although we could see some showers developing across parts of Northern Ireland, central and southern parts of England. There could be some hail and thunder mixed in here too. Temperatures round about average for the time of year, 17 or 18 degrees across the south, but definitely feeling cooler under that cloud and rain. Through the rest of Tuesday evening, the rain continues to push its way northwards across parts of Scotland. The very far northeast perhaps getting away with some dry conditions, but that rain turning heavy in places, and those blustery, thundery showers continuing across parts of Northern Ireland and into southern parts of Scotland through this evening. The showers also continuing for northern parts of and eastern parts of England, but further south and further west, we will see outbreaks of rain continuing to push their way eastwards overnight tonight and into the early hours of Wednesday morning. Showers gradually easing generally, though, through the early hours of the morning, and there will be some clear spells between those showers, so perhaps turning a little chilly in places, but quite widely, those temperatures holding up into the double figures into the early hours of Wednesday morning. Around 12, 13, perhaps even 14 degrees in places, but perhaps a little lower under those clearer spells. It does mean that Wednesday starts a little drier and brighter for many of us, though. There will be some sunshine as we head through the morning, perhaps a little cloudier, though, across parts of Scotland. But as we head in towards Wednesday afternoon, heavy showers developing again. The heavier showers once more across parts of eastern Scotland, northeastern England, but almost anywhere could see a shower through the afternoon, again with some hail and thunder mixed in too. Perhaps a little warmer than Tuesday with highs of 19 or 20 degrees and a little cooler further north.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. Train services in South Yorkshire are suspended between Doncaster and Cleethorpes because of an investigation. In Lincolnshire, the A16 is closed each way between the Finchbeck turnoff and the A152 at Spalding after an accident yesterday afternoon. In Bristol, the A4 is closed each way off the Broadmead roundabout at Kensham after an accident. In London, on the A40, it's down to a single lane each way at the North Circular at Hanger Lane for roadworks. There are long delays each way from Northolt and from the Greenford flyover. On the M26 in Kent, there are westbound queues getting onto the M25 because of roadworks. On the M27 in Hampshire, there's a lane closed westbound where someone's broken down between junctions 9 and 8 near Fareham. And train services on the Isle of Wight aren't running between Ryde, Pierhead and Shanklin because of a signalling problem. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
You really could be our next big winner with an incredible £20,000 in tax-free cash to play with this summer. What would you spend that on? Well, whilst you're thinking about it, listen to some of our previous winners getting that winning phone call from us.
You're the winner of the Great British Giveaway.
I'm slipping neck. Oh dear.
Oh my God, are you joking? Do you know what? I've never won anything like this in my life. Oh my God, this is amazing. Thank you.
Hurry, as lines close on Friday. For another chance to win £20,000 in tax-free cash, text PRIZE to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB05 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
GB News is Britain's election channel.
And when the big stories break, we're tackling them on Britain's newsroom. When we disagree, and we disagree a lot, it's even livelier than normal.
We don't disagree that much.
We do.
His comedy, though, is revolting. I knew her, and unlike you.
That explains Beverly Turner's temperament.
It's a bit frosty in here, isn't it?
He'll have one of me one day.
For dartball practice.
Britain's newsroom on GB News. Weekdays, 9:30 a.m.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry. Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
Hello there. The time is 8 o'clock on this Tuesday morning. Very good to see you. It is the 28th of May.
Thanks for joining us. You're tuned in to Breakfast with Eamonn Holmes and Isabel Webster.
The headlines this morning: campaign chaos as retiring Conservative MP Lucy Allen is suspended for backing reform in her constituency, while the Prime Minister tries to shift focus to economic credentials.
And what that will mean is tax cuts now for pensioners throughout the next Parliament.
Keir Starmer gets personal, declaring himself a socialist who'll always put his country first, as Labour sets to show off their business credentials.
Humanitarian heartbreak in Rafa as world leaders condemn the Israeli airstrike on Sunday, which killed 45 people, now described by Benjamin Netanyahu as a tragic mistake.
And as 5 members of a benefits fraud gang appear in court today, we'll be debating whether the benefits system is, well, benefiting the wrong people.
And President Biden has intervened to keep Prince Harry's visa documents secret.
And the sport this morning, Leicester manager Enzo Maresca seems the most likely next manager of Chelsea. After Ipswich's Kieran McKenna looks like he's staying put. Follow this merry-go-round. 14 times winner Rafa Nadal is out the French Open in the first round. And continuing with France, the Olympics is just 58 days away. And we'll be looking at one of the newest events. Oh, look, we've given it away. We've given it away. It takes place a long way away from Paris. Can you guess what it possibly is?
After a showery bank holiday weekend for many of us, there's further wet weather on the way. Join me later for the full forecast with all the details.
A lot of stories gauging reaction and getting reaction from you. Rishi Sunak kicking football with youngsters. Paul says, I'd pay good money to see Joe Biden navigating an obstacle course with a football. I'm sure you would. A lot of you think that instead of doing gimmicks and tricks like this, politicians should just act presidential or prime ministerial.
Jason says, Sunak reminds me of when Blair tried playing a guitar for reporters, but real musicians could see he wasn't very good. Or do you remember that time that David Cameron pretended he was a football fan and had to name which team he supported, and then he got in the right tangle when he was trying to name the team that he actually supported, which was none of them, really. So we've been talking about why on earth Rishi Sunak was out dribbling a football yesterday, and in a moment we'll be talking about Ed Davies out on a paddleboard. But these are the things that we're going to be seeing a lot of over the next few weeks. And already, since the election was announced, there have been some bumps on the campaign trail. The Prime Minister is to declare the state pension will never be taxed as he unveils a quadruple lock or a triple lock plus that will keep income for the elderly safe, he's claiming.
Well, earlier on the programme, we spoke with the Work and the Pensions Secretary, Mel Stride.
We believe that pensioners work hard for all their lives. They should be allowed to retire in dignity and security. That's why we brought in the triple lock, but we want to go still further, and that's where the triple lock plus comes in. And what that means is that we will be uprating not just the pensions by the triple lock, but also what's called the personal allowance. That's the amount that you can earn without paying any income tax, also by that same uprating by the triple lock.
Well, meanwhile, Labour is set to show off their economic credentials today, following on from Keir Starmer's keynote speech yesterday.
The very foundation of any good government is economic security, border security, national security. This is the foundation, the bedrock that our manifesto, our first steps, will be built on. And then on that foundation, with an end to the Tory chaos, we can start to rebuild our country. Step one, economic stability, the very foundation of growth, with tough spending rules that mean we can keep inflation, taxes and mortgages low.
Well, the Shadow Chancellor Rachel Reeves has promised to lead the most pro-growth treasury in the country as they receive the backing today of 120 business leaders.
And as we mentioned a moment ago, the Liberal Democrat leader, Ed Davey, will be up by Lake Windermere, paddleboarding no less, after launching the Lib Dem's campaign in Scotland over the weekend.
The people of Scotland have been doubly let down. Let down by an out-of-touch Conservative government in Westminster and taken for granted by an out-of-touch SNP government in Holyrood. They both have to go.
Let's cross now to our political correspondent Olivia Utley, who is out and about, and tell us where you are.
Hello, Eamonn. Yes, I am in Windermere. I'm in Kendal at the moment, actually, and I'm going to be watching Ed Davey and Tim Farron paddleboarding very soon. I feel quite sorry for them because apparently it's going to chuck it down with rain very soon. Now, Ed Davey's campaign is very much about trying to unseat Conservatives, mostly in the south of England. We're spending today up in Windermere, which is the Lib Dem's only seat in the north of England, and then we'll be heading down south to those blue wall constituencies, lots of them held by cabinet ministers, actually. Jeremy Hunt's constituency is very much on the Lib Dems' target list. The campaign isn't about attacking Labour. In fact, you'll almost never hear Ed Davey say a word against Keir Starmer, and all but one of the Lib Dems' target seats are held by either the Conservatives or the SNP. The Lib Dems I've spoken to here are sounding pretty cheerful about their campaign. They're taking a very, very different approach to in 2019. In 2019, the then Lib Dem leader, Jo Swinson, her motto was "Jo Swinson, your next Prime Minister." Ed Davey isn't pretending to anyone that he's going to be the next Prime Minister, but he is hoping to pick up a lot of protest votes from lifelong Conservatives who just feel they can't vote Conservative anymore.
And Olivia, just on the Conservatives, it's been a bruising few days, not exactly gone to plan. But this morning, all guns blazing in trying to capture the grey vote, as it's being dubbed in some of the papers this morning, very much trying to bank on the over 70 vote, which is sort of the only reliable demographic, it's thought, for the Blue Conservative Party.
Well, exactly. So what Rishi Sunak is promising it to do today is this quadruple lock on pensions, which basically means that pensioners will never have to pay income tax. At the moment, the personal threshold is at £12,500 and the pension doesn't go above that. But once the pension is raised next year, as it will be under the terms of the triple lock, pensioners would be dragged into that income tax bracket. Rishi Sunak is promising to unfreeze that cap, but only for pensioners. Now, the idea, as you say, Isabel, is to make sure that grey vote comes out. Those are the sort of staunch Conservative voters, the absolute base of the Conservative Party. And the worry this time is that although they might not vote Labour, they might not come out and vote Conservative. This policy aims to shore up that Conservative vote. obviously it stands the risk of backfiring. There will be plenty of working people this morning thinking, hang on a moment, yes, it's true, it's unfair that me on my low income is now being dragged into the higher rate of income tax or dragged into paying income tax at all. So why doesn't the same logic apply to me as applies to pensioners? So there is a chance of it backfiring, but Rishi Sunak at the moment is just desperate to make sure that his core vote, that core base that he could normally rely on 100%, actually bothers to turn up to vote Conservative on polling day.
Olivia, thanks very much. Keep us posted on everything in Lake Windermere. I was hoping that we would see you perhaps on a paddleboard, but maybe in a bit.
It's early days yet. Yeah, thank you. The process for starting an independent inquiry in Oldham is now underway. The Council's Labour group agreed to support an inquiry after losing overall control of the council elections, and this is after the former Labour-led council voted 7 times to reject the motion with the latest vote.
Right, well, we're joined in the studio by our reporter, Charlie Peters. This is all about grooming gangs, we should say. Bring us up to speed on what this means exactly.
Sure. Well, Labour has lost control of the council after rejecting this motion for several times. And Oldham, like many towns in Britain, dozens of towns, it has been caught up in this grooming gang scandal in recent years. But unlike other towns such as Telford or Rotherham, there hasn't been that style of inquiry into the crisis there, into what happened in the town. They have had a review, led by the Greater Manchester Authority, which came out in 2022, which found that there were significant safeguarding failures, particularly in the 2000s. They said that lessons were being learnt from that. However, last year, a Freedom of Information request found that the number of referrals for child sexual exploitation being sent by social services or Greater Manchester Police had rocketed by 580% in 8 years. A very significant number.
So why? Why have they rocketed?
Well, the council at the time said that this was due to a greater understanding of CSE in the town, with a better training for staff, better awareness. But local survivors in the town that I've spoken to have said that actually it's because many of the failures that occurred during the peak of this crisis are ongoing and lessons haven't actually been learned, and so there are many new victims who just aren't being picked up. 580% rise might just be...
It's disgraceful. It's disgraceful. It's disgraceful that this around the country, wherever it's been, Rotherham or Oldham or wherever, that people have got away with this. And the thing is, these towns know who these people are, and they operate out of coffee shops, and they operate out of barbers, and they operate out of, I don't know, but there's community areas whereby they have massage parlours and all sorts of things, and people know where this goes on and they get away with it. So how with impunity do they get away with it? If people know, if there are victims, and I understand a lot of the victims don't talk, but people know what's going on.
Yeah, a lot of the time, but they don't have confidence in the police to deal with the problem. And so last year the government launched an NCA-led task force. That's a national crime agency, Britain's FBI. It's a national service. It doesn't have some of the local political concerns that other forces might have. And that, the government said, has made a real difference. Last week, the Safeguarding Minister, Laura Farris, told me that they'd made some 550 arrests in the last year. They've trained 400 officers, and they've been to all 42 forces in England and Wales to deliver new training and give new data analysts. That is really crucial to tackling this problem, to get an understanding of the networks at play. But here in Oldham, the change is very political. It's less about policing, it's more about politics. Because earlier this month, when Labour lost control of the council, they dropped down to 27 seats. It's a 60-seat council, so they didn't have that majority rule. And that's been very rare over the last 40 years. In part due to the grooming scandal, this has been an ongoing area of very toxic politics in Oldham, actually, but also due to the ongoing war in the Middle East. Several Labour candidates lost their seats. Oldham is about 25% Muslim, way above the national average of around 7%. So a very significant vote there, leaning away from Labour. And that's created the situation where, in order to get a minority rule, the Labour candidate there, the Labour leader and the executive have, according to sources who've spoken to us yesterday, agreed to pushing forward a Telford-style or Rotherham-style,
Yes.
judge-led, panel-led,
And this would be,
independent inquiry.
this is independent?
Yes.
Independent, yeah. And it's absolutely disgraceful. I've got no tolerance for this at all, because there are people within various communities, they know who these people are, they know what's going on, and young girls are being damaged for the rest of their lives. We're talking about children. We're talking about children 10, 12, 14 years of age being used by these men, and everyone knows who these men are. We need to root them out, name them and shame them. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Well, with the time at 8:12, let's take a look at some of the other stories coming into the newsroom this morning. And Ireland, Norway and Spain are to formally recognise a Palestinian state today. The flag is to be flown over Leinster House, the home of the Irish Parliament. And the Palestinian mission in Dublin is to be upgraded to an embassy where an ambassador will be appointed.
Inflation levels back to normal, according to figures published by the British Retail Consortium. It eased to its lowest level since November 2021 after retailers cut the price of furniture and TVs. Unusually wet weather has been credited with helping to ease those prices as well. Now, I'm not sure how that affects you watching TV. I thought it would make you watch more TV, but no, so prices are coming down as a result of the wet weather. And teenagers have better relationships with their parents than 10 years ago.
That's according to a study carried out by the Economic and Social Research Institute that found mothers and fathers were reporting much lower levels of conflict with their children over time and were more likely to explain to their children what they had done wrong rather than to shout.
Tornadoes and storms have left at least 19 people dead across 4 states in America. Homes have been destroyed, hundreds of thousands of people left without power. This is affecting Texas, Arkansas, Oklahoma and Kentucky. Over 110 million Americans are under severe weather warnings.
See, the weather in America, I'm always grateful we don't live in Tornado Alley. Absolutely terrifying every year. And I always think, why don't these people move? But it's poverty. They can't move away from these areas. And it's often the poorest that are often worst affected by these kind of reoccurring natural events. Really, really frightening what's happening over there.
Meanwhile, over here, a row has erupted over the maintenance of a footpath that borders Hull and East Yorkshire. The trouble is, it's filled with potholes.
Yeah, these are potholes that are several inches deep and cause problems for both those trying to walk down the lane, but also for the residents that live at the end of it, as Anna Riley reports.
This medieval public footpath in East Yorkshire is popular with walkers, but a 700-metre section of the lane in Cottingham is peppered with potholes. On rainy days like this, it's prone to flooding. Trevor Saunders uses the lane every day to access his property, and he's been asking the council to repair it for decades.
You'll see on your left 3 or 4 potholes that the council say are acceptable. I'm going to stand in one for you, and you can say, imagine if you was disabled and walking down here and you happen to go in here, you'd be in trouble. Okay.
So just explain to me, it's nearly over your...
I don't go any further because it's deeper than this, and anybody of age or a disability would be in serious trouble. They'd fall over.
The uneven surface is problematic for vehicles as well as pedestrians.
It's like being in a rocking chair, up and down. It will be damaging my car. It will cost me money.
In some parts of the lane, the potholes are a foot deep. The fight to fix them has consumed the life of 74-year-old Trevor.
It's continually on my mind, and it's continually I have to keep trying to get the councils to do their duties to this footpath. I want them to do their legal duty to this very, very popular and heavily used footpath.
In response, East Riding of Yorkshire Council said the public walking along the route should expect conditions similar to other public rights of way in a countryside setting. Repairs to support traffic over and above walking for those who have private vehicular rights are not the council's responsibility. The route meets a reasonable standard for this type of path, and complaints from the public remain very low. Trevor now plans to crowdfund for legal action to get the lane fixed. Anna Riley, GB News, Cottingham.
Well, you've been getting in touch with us, and if you would like to support that whole campaign from Trevor to get those potholes sorted, and you may say, never mind your potholes, Trevor, you should see the size of ours. But we've got an article on the GB News website where there will be a link to his GoFundMe page, and we wish him well with what he's trying to do, but I think it's a lost cause,
there's
really.
just so many Trevors up and down the country, aren't there, fighting this fight. So frustrating.
That's your art in town halls.
No, I don't.
Yes,
I do not want to live in a country whereby we sell all of our art to fill our potholes. That is what a waste.
Well, I want to fill potholes with art.
No, we get the prisoners filling the potholes. That's what we should do. That's our opinion.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning, welcome to your latest GB News weather from the Met Office. So after a showery weekend for many of us, there is further rain on the way as we head through the rest of today. This arriving into the west through the early hours of this morning and continues to push its way northwards as we head through this afternoon. But it will be a bit of a brighter start across parts of Scotland and northern England through this morning. That rain continues to turn quite heavy in places, particularly across western parts of Scotland, although we could see some showers developing across parts of Northern Ireland, central and southern parts of England. There could be some hail and thunder mixed in here too. Temperatures round about average for the time of year, 17 or 18 degrees across the south, but definitely feeling cooler under that cloud and rain. Through the rest of Tuesday evening, the rain continues to push its way northwards across parts of Scotland. The very far northeast perhaps getting away with some dry conditions, but that rain turning heavy in places, and those blustery, thundery showers continuing across parts of Northern Ireland and into southern parts of Scotland through this evening. The showers also continuing for northern parts of and eastern parts of England, but further south and further west, we will see outbreaks of rain continuing to push their way eastwards overnight tonight and into the early hours of Wednesday morning. Showers gradually easing generally, though, through the early hours of the morning, and there will be some clear spells between those showers, so perhaps turning a little chilly in places, but quite widely, those temperatures holding up into the double figures into the early hours of Wednesday morning. Around 12, 13, perhaps even 14 degrees in places, but perhaps a little lower under those clearer spells. It does mean that Wednesday starts a little drier and brighter for many of us, though. There will be some sunshine as we head through the morning, perhaps a little cloudier, though, across parts of Scotland. But as we head in towards Wednesday afternoon, heavy showers developing again. The heavier showers once more across parts of eastern Scotland, northeastern England, but almost anywhere could see a shower through the afternoon, again with some hail and thunder mixed in too. Perhaps a little warmer than Tuesday with highs of 19 or 20 degrees and a little cooler further north.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Now, we have £20,000 in tax-free cash, which we have to give away.
Yes,
we just have to.
We mightn't have it much longer.
In our pockets.
That's the thing. Lines are going to close come Friday, and if you fancy that, if that's got you drooling, here are all the details you need for a chance to win.
You really could be our next big winner with an incredible £20,000 in tax-free cash to play with this summer. What would you spend that on? Well, whilst you're thinking about it, listen to some of our previous winners getting that winning phone call from us.
You're the winner of the Great British Giveaway.
I'm slipping neck. Oh dear.
Oh my God, are you joking? Do you know what? I've never won anything like this in my life. Oh my God, this is amazing. Thank you.
Hurry, as lines close on Friday. For another chance to win £20,000 in tax-free cash, text WIN to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB05 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Well, from good luck with that, other benefits we're going to talk about which may not bring you such good luck.
Yeah, so are benefits really reaching the right people? We'll be discussing that in our big debate up next.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
pubs.
Have government done enough, do you think, to actually help them out?
I think there will be occasions where people have tried to run a venture, whether it be a pub, a restaurant or anything sort of like that, in the hospitality sector, and it hasn't become commercially viable because of costs, because of bad accounting or because of bad business people. That is just a fact of life. That happens in every sector. So there will be pubs that are closing because they've been poorly run. But I do think there will be occasions where people are forced out of the market. So if local councils aren't being able to pass on business rates, for example, maybe central government can do more. It always tries to do more to cut beer duty and things like that to keep pubs going. So I don't think it's necessarily just as plain as what James is saying, is that, you know, bad pubs will just inevitably be falling by the wayside.
The idea that you two gentlemen, you raging capitalists, support the government stepping in to protect pubs seems to me to be particularly peculiar. If a pub isn't commercially viable, it has to be allowed to fail.
Well, Sadiq Khan, you know, he has a nighttime czar that he pays well over 100 grand.
Yes.
And businesses are going under like you wouldn't believe in London.
She's a real nightmare.
What's your point?
Well, the point is that Labour aren't exactly helping out these businesses, are they? So
I'm saying that pubs should not be protected by the state. I'm all for a pub.
Well, I'm not suggesting that we subsidise pubs.
That has been suggested. That's what James May is railing against. Although I have to say, it's all very well for James May and presumably his very posh gastropub. But if a pub is not fit for purpose, and May makes this point, you know, you've got to have decent, clean loos and a clean pub. And also, realistically, in this day and age, you know, times change, you've got to put on some decent grub as well if you want it to survive. We can't have the government stepping in to save our pubs. And anyway, my understanding over the last 10, 20 years, as a percentage, we haven't lost that many pubs, so they're not going under anytime soon.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, every Sunday at 9:30 when I'll be interviewing the key players in British politics and taking them to task.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial.
With an upcoming election looming over Westminster, now is the time for clear, honest answers.
I agree.
And that's precisely what I'll get.
Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's election channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry, Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
We want to talk now about the sentencing of a benefits fraud gang that falsely claimed, this is an amazing figure, 50 million quid, and that whole trial's going to begin today.
Yeah, and it comes as benefit scroungers in Essex have said they don't care who wins the upcoming election as long as they continue to get their cash.
So with all of this, we're asking the question, is the benefit system benefiting the wrong people?
Well, we're joined by the broadcaster Paula London and the political consultant Emma Burnell with differing opinions in all of this. Paula, first of all, you do think that the wrong people are getting their hands on essentially hard-working taxpayers' cash?
I think yes. And, you know, the Romanian group, they were at it for 4.5 years before they got caught. It was 50 million. And, you know, people deserve benefits that are genuinely medically unill, physically or mentally. But now I just feel like some people are having benefits as a lifestyle choice. And I was reading an article about an Afghan family that come over. They've got 11 children, 11, unbelievably, and they're demanding the council move them into a larger home because they're crowded, but they've made themselves crowded. You know, contraception is available in this country. A lot of people think they can come over from foreign countries, have as many kids as they like, and they expect taxpayers to pay for them. The woman now has another child on the way, so that will be 12. The man is working, but only as a delivery driver. It's not fair on the children. You can't expect British taxpayers to pay. And now parents are even getting paid to look after their own children that have ADHD. I have ADHD. It's no big deal. Why should parents get extra money just because their children either have ADHD
why should they get extra money, Emma?
ADHD?
Look, at the moment, 40% of claimants of universal credit are in work. The bigger question is not why people should or should not be getting benefits, but why work doesn't pay enough so that the state has to supplement employers. I think that's a much more important question to be asking. Secondly, 70%, 7 out of 10 people who applied for personal independence payments, i.e. the disability support, have their appeals successful on exactly the same evidence as was submitted in the first place. If you want to stop the benefit system costing the taxpayer, then make the benefit system work so that we don't go through these extraordinarily expensive processes which are only there to punish those asking for the help that they deserve from the state.
A lot of people will agree that there needs to be a security net for those people in society that most need it, and that is the right thing to do. But the examples that we opened with are what infuriates people, this sense that people are gaming the system, particularly if they're coming from abroad and pushing out British people who need that help and support. You clearly wouldn't be defending that, would you?
I don't think anyone should game the system. The system should be robust and we should stop there being any type of fraud. But actually, benefit fraud is significantly lower than lots of other types of fraud.
That's not true. No one knows how bad it is because these people haven't been caught. So that's just
you can
rubbish
make
when people say
that up because you're claiming that it is true. I'm saying it's not true. The evidence that we have says it's not true. Until you
don't have the evidence because nobody knows how many people claim it. And wait till Labour get in. Labour say they're the party for people that work, but they're not.
Supposition and just projecting. For example, we opened up this word with benefit scroungers, as if everybody on a benefit is scrounging off the state rather than getting the support they need from the country in which they live. That is not the framing that I would put for most of those people, particularly that 40% of universal credit. The example you gave, he's only working as a delivery driver.
Yeah, but you don't have 12 children if you're earning a minimum wage, do you? That's very, very careless.
Well, I don't know.
The lady's not working.
How many children did he have before he was in this situation? What are you going to do? Take those kids away?
One. I mean, all the woman's doing is getting pregnant.
It would be much more expensive.
Listen, if you can't afford 12 children, don't have them. It's wrong. It's wrong.
What if he could absolutely afford 12 children before
well, he can't. So why is he moaning about the council demanding a bigger house?
He may not have known that when they had the children.
They need to use protection, not expect the British taxpayer to pay for any child. How many does he want? 20? Is that outrageous?
Sorry, Emma, sorry, we couldn't hear what you were saying. Let Emma just respond to that a minute.
We don't know. You cannot make circumstances in the future. When he had 12 children, he may have not been on benefits. We don't know that.
I do know he was from Afghanistan. He had absolutely nothing in Afghanistan. He comes here and just takes advantage of our generous system, and now he's 12 children.
He's come through our system. That probably meant that he was one of the few in Afghanistan who passed the system because they helped the British state in their war.
But some of these people that helped their army have actually gone on to kill people in this country. He come through the legal resettlement scheme, and now he's just having child after child after child.
Person's going to do that.
Say that again, Emma.
Are you suggesting that you absolutely know that this person's going to go on to kill people, or are you suggesting
No, I said some people that have come over from the settlement scheme have gone on to kill people. So not everyone that comes over from Afghanistan, excuse me, are angels, just so you know.
You're conflating
Paula,
separate issues.
Yeah, and Paula, just to come back to you, I mean, Emma is making the point that, you know, the language sometimes around benefits it can be demonising, dehumanising, and we need to be careful, don't we, as a caring society, not to suddenly turn into a nation whereby we assume everybody who is getting help and support is on the scrounge, is gaming the system. To you, Paula.
Well, the thing is that some people genuinely need benefits, and our heart goes out to them. I'm very happy to live in a country that helps people that genuinely need help. No doubt about it. But unfortunately, too many people are gaming the system. This lady that I'm talking to, I'm sorry, I forgot your name. She's Anna. She seems to believe that... Emma. Yeah. OK, she seems to believe that hardly any people game the system. And I'm sure you're a Labour supporter. You wait till Labour get in. What's going to happen? Labour are going to bankrupt the country. Like, they bankrupt the councils, they'll bankrupt the country like every other time. And they had a big go at Rishi Sunak for daring to call out that some people might be gaming the system. So Labour will let any Tom, Dick and Harry, I'm depressed, I can't go to work forever, no problem. And you wait, the country will go bankrupt. It's because of people like you refuse to believe what some people like.
Respond, because there's a lot in there.
To say anyone else will make the country bankrupt.
Look at the history, look at political history. You'll see practically every time Labour have been in government, they've made the country bankrupt.
Look at the state the country's in under the Tories.
There's been a war, there's been COVID. It's very different.
Economy.
Look at the winter of discontent under Labour. That was great, wasn't it, with all the unions?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a big supporter of unions.
Okay, well, look what will happen. The country will come to a standstill again, and that's what you want.
Can't hear.
So, and it'll be bankrupt as well.
Well, we're already bankrupt, mate.
No, we're not actually. We're not bankrupt.
OK, well, I think there's not going to be much agreement here between Emma Burnell and Paula London. We'd love to know at home what you think in all of this. Is the benefit system benefiting the wrong people? Thank you both very much indeed. Emma, good to see you. Haven't seen you for a while. Come back to breakfast sometime soon. We'd love to have you reviewing the papers.
We've got one of the wrong people, Paul Coit, up next. Don't go away.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. Train services are suspended between Doncaster and Cleethorpes because of an investigation. In Lincolnshire, the A16 is closed each way between the Pinchbeck turnoff and the A152 at Spalding after an accident yesterday afternoon. On the M5 in Bristol, the inside lane's closed northbound at junction 19 at Portishead after an accident causing queues. And also in Bristol, the A4 is closed each way off the Broadmead roundabout at Kensham after an accident with queues towards there. In London, there are long delays on the A40 where there are roadworks off the North Circular at Hanger Lane. Queues back to South Rye. Slip on the M26 in Kent. There are westbound queues getting onto the M25 because of roadworks. And in East Sussex, the A22 is closed each way between the Little Horsted roundabout and the Aylesbury roundabout at Uckfield after an accident causing queues. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
GB News is Britain's election channel.
And when the big stories break, we're tackling them on Britain's newsroom. When we disagree, and we disagree a lot, it's even livelier than normal.
We don't disagree that much.
We do. His comedy, though, is revolting. I knew her, and unlike you. That explains Beverly Turner's temperament.
It's a bit frosty in here, isn't it?
He'll have one of me one day.
Yeah, for dartball practice. Britain's newsroom on GB News. Weekdays, 9:30 a.m.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Mark Dolan, and this is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're GB News, and we come from a proud tradition of British journalism.
That's why I'm so excited to be here. It's something so new.
The first news channel to be launched in Britain in over 30 years.
Launched to represent the views of the British people.
To go where other broadcasters refuse to go.
How did you find out about the story in the first place?
Launched with one aim.
To be the fearless champion of Britain.
It's an absolutely fantastic atmosphere here.
This is GB News.
GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and this is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry, Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
I'm Nana Acquia. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Time to go through the latest sports news with the broadcaster Paul Coyne. Do you know, if we actually read the rubbish that was put in front of us here, no, it's true. They call you a broadcaster. Where did they get that from?
I have no idea. I have no idea. You know what? I think it's been there since I started here, which was like 15, 20 years ago. And I was a broadcaster back in those days.
Were you?
What I am now.
Where did it all go
Now you've just done a hard paper round.
Working with you, mate. I'll tell you, that's it. It's just sent me down the pan.
I see they're talking, Burnley are talking about Frank Lampard.
They
replace Vincent Kompany.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's another. It's just oh, well, who's available? Who could we get?
Sometimes, and who's a name? Who's a name as well?
This is what's happened with Wayne Rooney. You know, Wayne Rooney going to Birmingham, and they thought Gary Eustace, who was there, and they thought, oh, I know, we'll get rid of him because he's in 6th place. Wayne Rooney, big name, bring him in. It's been a disaster. So now Wayne Rooney's gone to Plymouth. His stock's dropped. It's just
I tell you,
names out the sky.
I just think physical. I think it's great for Plymouth and everything. You know, I think it's marvellous. It gets people interested in the game and whatever. And there's tremendous support for the Argyle down there. But I think the journeying for Wayne and the Euros and all that will be very hard on him. I mean, he lives in the northwest, doesn't he? I mean, it's a blooming long distance, that is.
Down to the southwest, yeah. It's a fair... I don't know whether it's going to work out for him. This is going to be the last roll of the dice, I imagine. He's got on TV. Does he have to get back into management? I don't know whether it's right. Enzo Maresca is the other guy.
So he's the Leicester...
He's the Leicester manager for the moment, but it looks like it's very, very close that he's going to be the next Chelsea manager. But it's another one. It's almost like, well, this Enzo Maresca, he's performed miracles at Leicester. He's taken them back into the Premier League. But I always thought it was likely they were going to go back up. Well, the proof of the pudding and all that stuff, I don't know who's any better than Pochettino.
I think after Saturday, I would keep Erik ten Hag at Man United.
Would you have said that before?
No.
OK, so...
Or, put it this way, I wouldn't have cried into my cornflakes before that.
You know what I didn't like about him?
What?
He had trainers with no socks on with his suit. Did you see that?
Man,
Did you see that?
I couldn't take my eyes off it.
I couldn't either. I mean, you're watching the game. I'm like, what's with this?
So
he
wore a lovely suit.
Yes.
And a red tie, white shirt, and no socks.
No socks. What are you, Don Johnson in Miami Vice? It's crazy.
Be secret socks, I reckon.
Do you think? But even it's like too much ankle going on. I did like the fact. Now they did both pay respect to the FA Cup, both Pep and Eric, that they both wore suits, which was nice because we've seen it at FA Cup finals where they've been in tracksuits. But the no sock thing,
they will have socks on.
But little tiny
ones.
Yeah, no, but even it's showing too much.
It's just the ankle offends you.
Too much ankle for a manager.
Definitely agree with you, mate. Definitely agree with you.
That's
but an amazing performance. Now, young Kieran McKenna, who used to be on the coaching staff at Man United, went to Ipswich, did amazing things there. He's also in the loop that people are... Do you think he'll stay at Ipswich?
See, where we are at the moment with Kieran McKenna is that he's definitely out of the Chelsea job. So when all these jobs come up, like I said, everybody's like, all right, who can we go? Who's young, progressive, exciting? Who's it going to be? Everybody's pointing at Kieran McKenna. But what he's done with Ipswich has been brilliant. But will it work with a big club with lots of money? So Chelsea looks out of the running. There's talk that he's going to stay at Ipswich Town, which obviously Ipswich fans would be really happy with if he sticks around. But I believe if it's not Ipswich, he'll be waiting for Manchester United. And if Manchester United happens, if Ten Hag goes, then I think he might say, I'm your guy.
But what happened to you have to have certain experience, you have to have, managed in Europe and all that sort of thing?
Doesn't exist anymore because it's cyclical. We look at managers like Conte and Mourinho, and now they seem out of date. And it's like, well, we want someone young, we want someone that's going to change things. But it's so weird. And it's just when you get a young manager appear from nowhere that's done something very exciting, everybody wants him. But if it doesn't work out, then your stock drops like Wayne Rooney. You've got it. It's a very difficult decision to make.
I think there's some really weird managers out there. And I think Captain Black's one of them at Arsenal.
We don't trust him.
I do. I just think he's really obsessed.
Yeah. He did a great... You know what? And as much as it hurts me to say, he's done a great job.
He's done a great job, but I don't think I'd like to work for him.
But with Maresca, he has also come from the school of Pep, which is the same... Because that's what Chelsea look, and they're going, look at old Captain Black, he's done well, but it took a while for it to settle in. So are they going to give Maresca the time? I wouldn't be so sure, mate.
And are they going to give Ten Hag the time? I mean, he's doing better than Fergie did all those years ago. Let's have a look at a bit of surfing now. Talk us through what we're about to see here.
Surfing, this is the future of the Olympics. I've got a thing about surfing. I've never been able to surf before, but I love surf music and I love surfing things. For example, like to hang 10. Do you know what hang 10 means?
No.
What would you imagine if you were surfing, what would hang 10? It's something to do with...
He's a new manager of...
Eric Hang 10.
Eric Hang 10.
Tim is the manager.
And toes. 5 all...
Yes. Yes, you're right. Hang 10 is to hang 10 toes over the... By the way, that's me toes there.
That's your toes.
It's to hang them over there. Catch a tip is when you... I just think of Beach Boys songs. Catch a tip, you get wiped out. The pipeline, there was an old song by the Shantays, which is which is where they go through the middle. Anyway, have a look at this. This is great. This is in Tahiti, and this is where the Olympic surfing will take place. This is Vahin Fierro.
Well, hang on, the French Olympics?
Yeah.
Is Tahiti
in Tahiti
French?
because it's French Polynesia, so therefore they don't have waves like that on the Seine.
Yeah.
So that's where they're going to be doing it. Like, look at, I mean, they're beautiful.
Yeah.
It's like the start of Hawaii 5-0, isn't it?
You know when you see those enormous waves, I think they're sometimes off the coast of Portugal, and they're sort of taller than a skyscraper.
Huge ones, yeah.
I don't know how people survive that. It's such skill.
The power.
Such skill.
I'd give it a go on a lilo, paddle out and sit on the top. Kelly Slater as well. Now, Kelly Slater, this is Kelly Slater, 52 years old.
Wow.
Kelly Slater, 11-time world champion. So there we are, going through the pipeline there.
Possibly the coolest sport in the world, isn't it?
Isn't it? Yeah.
52-year-old surfing dude.
Love to be able to do
really cool.
Well, that was me at the weekend, but anyway.
I know, there you are. Look at that.
Guys, thank you very much indeed. Thank you very much. Paul, we'll say goodbye to you. Thanks for everything this morning, my friend.
Always a pleasure.
Good. Still to come. We'll be looking at what's making the news. Nicky Hodgson, Alex Armstrong, next.
GB News is the home of free speech. We were created to champion it, and we deliver it day in, day out.
Free speech allows us all to explore and debate openly the issues most important to us, our families, and of course, the British people.
Having challenging conversations to enlighten each other.
Which is why we hear all sides of the argument.
We are the People's Channel.
We will always stand by the freedom to express yourself.
On TV, radio and online.
This is GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Well, Welsh farmer Gareth Wyn-Jones is a first-language Welsh speaker and joins us now. Gareth, I mean, a lot of people will be thinking, hang on, this guy is a Welsh teacher. He speaks English. He knew what was on the parking ticket. He's just trying to make a point. He's being a prat, isn't he?
No, hey, come on, mate. I'm a first language Welsh. It's important that we watch after our language and, you know, that everything's bilingual. For us in Wales, you wouldn't go to France and expect your ticket to be in English, would you? You know, English is the most spoken language, but let's watch after these small languages. It's part of our cultural. So, you know, I take my hat off to the guy. Fair play to him for go out and to fight this. But what it's done is put it onto the mainstream media, and you're talking about it, even that you're calling them that. You know, at least we're having a discussion about it, and it's putting the Welsh language in the forefront. And,
so,
you know,
Gareth,
speaking Welsh is important.
Yeah, so Gareth, this is a matter of principle. Is there a sense that the Welsh language is being eradicated in Wales? Is this something that the Welsh people need to rise up against?
Well, Welsh government are trying to, you know, bring a lot more Welsh speaking into our daily life and teach people how to speak Welsh. Well, everything should be bilingual then. And I think, you know, it should start with government. So government should be putting pressure on these companies to make sure everything is bilingual. So I get behind this guy. Fair play to him. It's a good stance, and it's puts it in the public eye. Let's have everything in both languages, especially Welsh, because that's my first language. And I'm
you know what? If I was Welsh, if I were Welsh, I think I would agree with you. I think I would agree with you, Gareth.
It depends if you come from Wrexham.
GB News is Britain's election channel.
And when the big stories break, we're tackling them on Britain's newsroom. When we disagree, and we disagree a lot, it's even livelier than normal.
We don't disagree that much.
We do. His comedy, though, is revolting. I knew her, and unlike you. That explains Beverly Turner's temperament.
It's a bit frosty in here, isn't it?
He'll have one of me one day.
Yeah, for dartball practice. Britain's newsroom on GB News. Weekdays, 9:30 a.m.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Let's talk tattoos. We've got Alex Armstrong and Nicky Hodgson. Alex, so what do you want to tell us about tattoos?
Yeah, well, so there's this really disturbing report coming out. I think it's in a few of the papers today, but I've got the Metro here, that's saying having a tattoo could increase your risk of developing a rare blood cancer by 21%. There are some studies are actually suggesting people go and just get themselves checked if they've had tattoos. of course, we know that there's a lot of people who are getting tattoos these days. It's become a very popular phenomenon, especially amongst young people. But just to give you some stats here, the team that investigated this said the long-term health impacts involving 11,905 people, of whom 2,938 aged 20 to 60 had lymphoma. So
that's amazing.
It's pretty shocking stuff.
It is quite shocking. I mean, I don't know why I wouldn't be interested in tattoos, but I'm not interested. It's not for me. Recently, I saw a woman from behind, and she was in a bikini, and very good figure. And she was completely covered in tattoos, and I was fascinated with her. And I was having my lunch, and I was looking at her, and then she turned round, and this amazing form in the bikini, and she turned round to me, and she just looked at me, and she looked like this.
Oh, my.
She had no teeth, right? And she was obviously about 78 years of age. But her body wasn't. Her body looked like as if it was 22, right?
Lucky
so
lady.
It was amazing. But she turned around and her face was 78. But I find it amazing that she had done this. She wore a bikini. She had an amazing figure. But
So you're saying that she looked in the face 78?
Yes.
Oh, wow. So did she have tattoos on her face as well?
No.
But she'd obviously spent all the money on tattooing, not dentistry.
And hairstyle. She had a magnificent hairstyle, beautifully cut hair, and but didn't bother putting her teeth in, which was strange. But
well, there you go.
That was her thing.
Well, before you worry about getting your tattoos done, do your teeth first.
Get your teeth sorted. What about your weight, Nikki? There's been so much press about these Ozempic, Wegovy, fat jabs as they're dubbed, and then this bump, literally, this rise in fertility for women. Tell us more.
It's so fascinating. So there's been lots of effects of these weight loss drugs that doctors weren't expecting. And one of them is that people who previously couldn't get pregnant have found themselves pregnant. There's Facebook groups dedicated to people that are having Wegovy babies.
Ozempic babies.
And it could obviously, obesity is a problem if you want to get pregnant. So is polycystic ovary syndrome, which is that apparently this potentially helps with that. But the important fact is that actually when it was trialled on animals, rats, pregnant rats had babies that had abnormalities. They were malformed. So we don't at all know if it's safe for pregnant women to take, and it definitely shouldn't be used as a means of getting pregnant at the moment. But it doesn't mean that it couldn't be. There might be a way of actually finessing the drug so that it does become a fertility treatment.
But that's incredible, isn't it? Because you don't expect these things that are tackling a specific part of the body, just fat and weight loss, to then have these random side effects like getting pregnant. I mean, I think some people
could the side effect be that it makes them more attractive, and therefore, do you know what I mean? They suddenly become more
people right?
Yes, no, he's right.
Actually.
He's right. I'm just thinking of someone going, "Yeah, I'm hotter. I'm I can get more babies."
Yeah. Crikey.
Extra care.
Speaking of those babies and their schooling, Alex, private schools. I mean, there's not a day goes by when this isn't in the papers.
I know.
Well, lots of questions about whether or not almost half of children in private schools may be forced into the state sector because of this, and whether or not actually Labour have thought this through, or whether or not they really care. Because it certainly sounded from Starmer yesterday that this is a man who wants to go on a bit of a class warfare. He's a socialist. This is all about his sort of politics rather than it's politics of envy or politics of class, you could say.
Well, that's right. And there's a poll that's come out and they're saying, as many as 224,000 pupils who are currently in the private sector having to move into state schools because of not being able to afford to pay to go, essentially, which is going to put a tremendous strain on the state school system. I think one MP was tweeting today, I couldn't get it in time before my feed reloaded, but they said this could be up to 2.2 billion more in spend on schools needed, which is a lot of money. So, you know, that also outweighs some other tax cuts that tax proposals that Labour have put forward. So my problem with all these things around general election time is that parties start putting out these ridiculous policies that nobody's thought through properly, and the impact that it's going to have on people. The one thing that I really dislike about this is that there's so many people in the Labour Party. You've got people like Diane Abbott, who's no longer actually in the party, but who want to get rid of the private school system, but benefited from it themselves, and their children benefit from it as well because they have kids in private schools. And I really think that the public massively dislike that. So I think you've got to take a look at yourself first before you start.
I just think the idea that they're coming at this as a socialist, you know, this is sort of trying to benefit everybody. Do they really think that these middle-class kids who were in private school being forced into state schools will be sent to rubbish, failing state schools?
Well, no, exactly.
They'll be sent to the best ones where the house prices are expensive, and it will be the kids from poorer families who can't afford to send their kid to that school who will be elbowed out, and it will be a Labour policy that will actually lead to the poorest and the most deprived children suffering. And I don't think they own that. I do think that that is something that we need to hold their feet to the fire on, because, yes, the headline gets the attention. Why should these people have this exceptional education when other kids aren't? But actually it's going to hurt those, you know, those kids that probably arguably need those successful state schools the most.
Well, and also, people will pay for whatever they need for their children anyway. You know, if you abolished private schools, what would happen is you'd have a tutoring system, which you have in other countries. It's like that. People will find a way to advance their children if they've got money to do that.
I don't know why. I just don't know why. I mean, Tony Blair got this really spot on. He said, education, education, education. If you're going to do this, say to the public, we'll kill it within our first term. Sorry, we'll build a ton more schools in our first term, and then we'll say these are exceptional schools now, and get people to go to state schools. I mean, if you can incentivise people to actually go to state school...
Build the ark and they shall come.
Absolutely.
People who send their kids to private school would rather have that money for their holidays or whatever else.
But you're saying that this will put a stress on the state system. The state system hasn't got capacity to take people who will fall out of the private system.
Yes,
okay. Right, final word, Nikki, on June, weather-wise. What's going to happen in June?
Well, it's going to be potentially 30 degrees.
Yes.
We've had a complete washout spring, but the good weather is on the horizon. So June looks like it will be hotter than average. 30 degrees on the mercury.
Can't wait.
Can't wait.
So I need to get some garden furniture.
Pre-election sunbathing for us all, because we won't have anything to do.
I can see it now, can't you, on the election campaign trail, all the reporters...
MPs in bikinis.
Yeah, trying to wear shirt and tie.
Well, you do wonder. Well, you do wonder if it's a really hot day on the election day, the people are going to go, I'll just stay at home and sunbathe.
Well, that's the risk, but you hope that it's kind of fair weather, so they feel like walking to the polling station.
December.
Yeah.
It's good weather. I mean, I'm a great fan of ice cream.
Oh, yeah.
And I always associate ice cream with hot weather, which is nice.
What's your favourite flavour?
I do like vanilla. I think it's hard to argue against vanilla and a flake and a, bit of
old-fashioned
strawberry sauce on it or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
There you go. Guys, it's been lovely talking to you both this morning. Alex and Nikki, thank you very much indeed. We'll now find out what the... what month are we in?
We're in May.
We're in
Very
May.
soon, June.
May weather. Here we go. Ellie.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning and welcome to your latest GB News weather from the Met Office. So after a showery weekend for many of us, there is further rain on the way as we head through the rest of today. This arriving into the west through the early hours of this morning and continues to push its way northwards as we head through this afternoon. But it will be a bit of a brighter start across parts of Scotland and northern England through this morning. That rain continues to turn quite heavy in places, particularly across western parts of Scotland, although we could see some showers developing across parts of Northern Ireland, central and southern parts of England. There could be some hail and thunder mixed in here too. Temperatures round about average for the time of year, 17 or 18 degrees across the south, but definitely feeling cooler under that cloud and rain. Through the rest of Tuesday evening, the rain continues to push its way northwards across parts of Scotland. The very far northeast perhaps getting away with some dry conditions, but that rain turning heavy in places and those blustery, thundery showers continuing across parts of Northern Ireland and into southern parts of Scotland through this evening. The showers also continuing for northern parts of and eastern parts of England, but further south and further west, we will see outbreaks of rain continuing to push their way eastwards overnight tonight and into the early hours of Wednesday morning. Showers gradually easing generally, though, through the early hours of the morning, and there will be some clear spells between those showers, so perhaps turning a little chilly in places, but quite widely, those temperatures holding up into the double figures into the early hours of Wednesday morning. Around 12, 13, perhaps even 14 degrees in places, but perhaps a little lower under those clearer spells. It does mean that Wednesday starts a little drier and brighter for many of us, though. There will be some sunshine as we head through the morning, perhaps a little cloudier, though, across parts of Scotland. But as we head in towards Wednesday afternoon, heavy showers developing again. The heavier showers once more across parts of eastern Scotland, northeastern England, but almost anywhere could see a shower through the afternoon, again with some hail and thunder mixed in too. Perhaps a little warmer than Tuesday, with highs of 19 or 20 degrees, and a little cooler further north.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In Lincolnshire, the A16 is closed in both directions between the Pinchbeck turnoff and the A152 at Spalding after an accident yesterday afternoon. Trains have been stopped between Barmouth and Llanbedr because of a level crossing problem. On the M5 in Bristol, the inside lane's closed northbound at junction 19 at Portishead after an accident causing queues. Also in Bristol, the A4 is closed each way off the Broadmead roundabout at Kensham after an accident with queues there too. In London on the A40, there are long eastbound delays from South Ruislip to the North Circular at Hanger Lane. It's down to a single lane each way through the tunnel for roadworks. On the M26 in Kent, there are westbound queues getting onto the M25 because of roadworks. In East Sussex, the A22 is closed each way at Arkfield after an accident causing queues, and Skybus flights to and from the Isles of Scilly are on hold because of poor weather conditions. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
It's the final week to see how you can win a whopping £20,000 cash. And because it's totally tax-free, every single penny will be in your bank account to do whatever you like with. £20,000 in tax-free cash really could be yours this summer. Hurry, as lines close on Friday. You've got to be in it to win it. For another chance to win £20,000 in tax-free cash, text PRIZE to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB05, PO Box 8690, Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's 9 o'clock. It's Tuesday, the 28th of May. You are very welcome. Thanks for your company this morning.
Nice to see you. Nice to have you out there, whether you're listening on radio or whether you're watching us on some other device. Very good morning to you, Eamonn and Isabel here. The headlines today: campaign chaos as retiring Conservative MP Lucy Allen is suspended after backing reform in her constituency, while the Prime Minister tries to shift focus to his economic credentials.
What that will mean is tax cuts now for pensioners throughout the next Parliament.
Keir Starmer's getting personal, declaring himself a socialist who will always put his country first as Labour sets to show off their business credentials.
Humanitarian heartbreak in Rafa as world leaders condemn the Israeli airstrike on Sunday, which killed 45 people, now described by Benjamin Netanyahu as a tragic mistake.
And President Biden has intervened to keep Prince Harry's visa documents secret. We'll be speaking to Angela Levin to get all the latest.
After a showery bank holiday weekend for many of us, there's further wet weather on the way. Join me later for the full forecast with all the details.
Top story on this Tuesday morning, and despite some bumps on the campaign trail, the Prime Minister is to declare the state pension will never be taxed as he unveils a quadruple lock that will keep income for the elderly safe.
Well, meanwhile, Labour's set to show off their economic credentials today as they receive the backing of 120 business leaders. Rachel Reeves is promising to lead a pro-growth Treasury.
And the Liberal Democrat leader, Ed Davey, will be in Windermere today. Paddleboarding. Yeah, I kid you not.
That's going to win him the election.
Paddleboarding after launching the Lib Dem's campaign in Scotland yesterday.
The people of Scotland have been doubly let down. Let down by an out-of-touch Conservative government in Westminster and taken for granted by an out-of-touch SNP government in Holyrood. They both have to go.
Meanwhile, Reform, on their side of things, Richard Tice spent much of yesterday defending Nigel Farage's comments surrounding young Muslims in Britain.
The vast majority of Muslims in the UK and all over the world are great, peace-loving, hard-working, aspirational, community-giving people. But there is an element, and we have to be honest about it and have this discussion, a meaningful element who don't share our culture and values.
Well, let's speak now to the Shadow Business Secretary, Jonathan Reynolds, who joins us this morning. A very good morning to you.
Good morning from Norwich on the campaign trail.
What are you up to today? Tell us what your plans are.
Well, starting the day talking to your good selves in Norwich, and then I'm going to go to Great Yarmouth, where we've got a couple of business visits, and then I'll continue on to Lowestoft. So it's the campaign trail. It is absolutely great so far, very enjoyable, but lots to do still.
A few months. I wanted to ask you about reports that are doing the rounds this morning relating to your colleague or former colleague, Diane Abbott. Now, as many people will know, she was suspended pending an investigation following allegedly racist comments. These reports this morning suggest that actually that investigation wrapped up 5 months ago and that the veteran Labour MP remains unclear on her own future, whether or not she'll be allowed to stand for Labour in the upcoming election. And it's also being reported that she was asked to conduct an anti-Semitism online course in February. Can you tell us any more about the latest and whether or not you think she should be standing in a few weeks' time?
I can't tell you any more because the process is independent of Labour politicians like me. I've only seen the news that you correctly described there. Of course, I want any situation like this resolved as soon as possible. Any disciplinary action has got to involve the engagement of both sides, but I generally don't have any additional information to what you have just outlined there.
You don't
but of
have
course,
a personal opinion, though, on whether Diane Abbott should be allowed to stand and represent your party?
No, I've not been part of that process. That's entirely right. I don't know what the conversations have been as part of that.
It's just about the principle, whether or not you think somebody who's been accused of racism has done an online course to try and sort out her views, presumably, has the right to remain in the party and represent it at the general election.
Well, look, the reason I mentioned the process is I don't know what the response from both sides have been. I don't know what was agreed. I don't know what the outcome of that is. So I can't comment without that kind of information. Of course, I want that resolved as soon as possible, but I have no more information genuinely than what you've been able to put to me.
Jonathan, give us your opinion or your comments on big business in Britain. Rachel Reeves is saying today that if you can bring business back to Labour, we can bring growth back to Britain. Why should business trust you?
Absolutely. Well, obviously you will have seen today a significant number of senior business figures in the UK come out and back Labour, say we need a change in the UK, and only Labour can deliver the change on the economy that we need. Look, Labour's proposals on the economy are at the heart of getting our public services and our living standards back to where we need them to be. So they're a manifesto for stronger business investment, more stability in order to do that, better industrial policy, closer relationship to the European Union in terms of how that trading relationship works without reliving the Brexit arguments. It's about how we have, for instance, things like changes to the apprenticeship levy that will put more investment into skills in the UK. But it also has, and we're unashamedly positive about this, a set of proposals for more secure work, getting rid of exploitative zero-hours contracts, banning fire and rehire, and the fact that we've got so many business figures backing a set of proposals as comprehensive as that, I think is testament to how we've changed in the Labour Party, but also that we've got that plan for the future. Because without a stronger growing economy than we've seen in the last few years, frankly, any decisions in the next Parliament are likely to be tough ones when it comes to decisions around public services and public investment. That has to be based on a strong economy. And as these business figures are saying, we just have not seen anything like that under the Conservative Party for 14 years now.
Well, it's certainly a significant shift for Labour if you think where you were 5 years ago. And there are those people who are saying, you're talking about the OBR and increasing their responsibilities. And Rachel Reeves, with her background at the Bank of England, she's very much an establishment figure. And a lot of people say, how are you going to balance this new commitment, basically, to try and steal some of that ground that the Conservatives traditionally have held and being pro-business, but also keep the left of your party on side, be pro-worker and be answerable to your big donors, the unions. And that is going to be a difficult path for you guys to walk, isn't it?
We're walking that path, and look at where we are. We call our agenda pro-worker, pro-business. It does have stronger employment rights in there, more secure work. We want growth in the economy, but we want that to be the kind of growth you can base good family life around. A good life, you've got the kind of security you need in order to be able to do that. Workers themselves want to see the businesses they work for be able to invest in the UK and not say, I'm not putting my money here. You've had 3 prime ministers in a year. I'm going to go to France or Germany instead. So they know the need that is there. And of course, there are huge opportunities from technology, from the transition to clean energy that the UK could be leading the world on. But at the minute, we're bottom of the pack, bottom of the G7 for business investment. We shouldn't accept we can't do better than that, because we know we can do better. And ultimately, this is about the living standards for all of us in the UK and the public services that we get.
What about the living standards of those people who've worked hard all their lives and paid into pensions? Under Labour, the Conservatives are telling us they will be paying tax from 2027. They'll be pulled into it via fiscal drag. And they say you are indifferent to what they're describing as the quadruple lock or the triple lock plus, which means that pensioners in this country under Conservative government will never pay any tax. Are you shrugging your shoulders at that, as they're claiming?
Well, I'm just laughing in disbelief at what they put out overnight again. So let's be clear, the only reason the state pension at £11,500 a year is anywhere near being taxed is because the personal allowance is £12,500, and it's the Conservative Party that have frozen that for the last few years. So they're announcing a policy that we want a stronger economy where we will see those thresholds rise. We know what we will inherit. We'll take, obviously, what the current government plans are. That's simply how winning an election works. But it is laughable to hear the Conservative Party say we're introducing a policy, so the thing that we're doing isn't going to happen. And I look at what they put out overnight, and again, it's, I think, using the same pot of money, which yesterday they said would pay for national service. I just don't think it's realistic. I don't think it's credible. I think pensioners will look at it and say, hang on a minute, if you're the people responsible for the highest tax burden by any point in British history, why should we trust you to cut our taxes now? Labour supports the triple lock. We believe that's the foundation of a good, solid state pension. But of course, we should say again that many pensioners do pay tax because they'll have an occupational pension, an average of over £10,000 a year on top of their state pension, which they are taxed upon. So I don't think anyone will believe this nonsense from the Conservative Party overnight.
And just quickly on private schools, a new report that's on the front of the Daily Mail this morning suggests nearly half of private school pupils will be forced into the state sector due to your tax raid. And they are saying that they don't think that the state sector is ready for this.
Well, I don't think it's a credible report, sadly. I know if you look at who's commissioned that report, I think it's a clear example of a vested interest. The authoritative work done on this is by the Independent Institute for Fiscal Studies. They've modelled based on previous rises, because let's be clear, private school fees have risen very, very sharply in the last few years. I mean, they're way beyond the means of the average income of most people in the UK. But I would say, of course, and it's true to say, that we have a declining birth rate in the UK. So even if this report were true, there would be capacity in the state sector to do it. But I'm afraid I can't sign up to the findings of that report because I don't think it's authoritative. And again, the vast majority of people in the UK go to state schools, and this is about a pragmatic way of raising some more revenue for more teachers, more mental health support, better careers advice in state schools, and that's our choice. That's our choice we've made on the Labour side. It's a choice the British people can go for or reject at the general election, but I feel very confident in the decisions that we've made on that.
Jonathan, we've got to leave it there. That's Jonathan Reynolds, the Shadow Secretary of State for Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy. Thank you very much indeed. On the campaign trail. Let's cross to our political correspondent, Olivia Utley, who'll be doing very little else but being on that, pounding that trail for the next 6 weeks. Windermere, you're in.
Yes, I'm in Kendal High Street at the moment, heading off to Lake Windermere very soon. I'm here because Ed Davey and Tim Farron, Liberal Democrat leader and Liberal Democrat MP for this area, are here at the moment. They are going paddle boarding later, a classic sort of Liberal Democrat stunt. They're here because it's the only Lib Dem held constituency in the north of England. And after this, we'll be heading down to the south of England, where the Lib Dems have lots and lots of target seats, most of them held by Conservatives, and some of them held by current Conservative cabinet ministers. The Lib Dems have their eye, for example, on Jeremy Hunt's seat in Surrey, and in Michael Gove's former seat. He is, of course, stepping down, also in the home counties area. Now, when you listen to Ed Davey, and we'll be speaking to him later, so I'm sure we'll hear some of that, he very, very rarely criticises Keir Starmer. This campaign is not about Ed Davey winning the general election. It is about the Liberal Democrats picking up protest votes from lifelong Conservative voters who just don't feel that they can vote Conservative anymore. The Lib Dems have ruled out a coalition with the Conservatives, but interestingly haven't ruled out a coalition with the Labour Party. The Lib Dems I've spoken to here are very much hoping that in the coming weeks the polls narrow to the extent that we are talking about a hung parliament, and then, of course, the Lib Dems could be kingmakers.
OK, Olivia, whilst you're there, I think you should stock up on some Kendal mint cake. Absolutely essential for all election campaigns. No better place to get it as well. Have a fabulous day. We'll check in with you a little bit later on here on the channel. Thanks very much for now.
Well, Britain's newsroom, 9:30. Andrew and Bev, as per usual. Good morning.
We were just discussing what to tell you, and I said, well, we have got Rachel Reeves live this morning, and he went,
don't tell them that. We want people to stay watching.
Yes, but we have to. I'm quite interested in Rachel Reeves. If she does become the first ever female Chancellor, we have to listen to what she's got to say.
Well, also, these business leaders that have lined up today, it's a bit of a blow for the government.
Yeah, but we've got a very interesting guest coming on a little later who's going to go through that list, because not all of them are people perhaps you'd want on that list.
Tell us more. Who've you got?
Piers Pottinger is the businessman extraordinaire. He knows quite a few of them, and actually, so we're going to have quite a lot of fun with that list.
Great.
Too many. You don't need 110. You should have
120.
You have the dirty dozen.
Right, okay.
And make sure they're spot on.
And what will the implications be of this private school VAT tax? Front page of the Mail today, 4 in 10 parents who've got kids at private school say they'll take them out. That won't just affect the kids at private school. That is going to affect everybody in the state system. You cannot build schools quickly. You cannot get enough teachers quickly. And by some estimates, we could need 155,000 new state school places by January.
Already one private school in Hampshire saying it will close. This is and Labour. I think this is Labour at its worst politics of envy. I really do.
And we heard, didn't we, from Starmer yesterday talking about how he's a socialist, and we've had other people saying they're Christian socialists this morning. It feels as though this is the kind of policy that they're going to be shoving out there because they believe, you know, this is a socialist Britain that we live in, where there's no elitism.
I've looked up socialist definition. Do you know socialists believe in giving free food? OK. What, for everybody? It's ridiculous.
OK.
How are you, Eamonn?
Sorry?
You had a quiet weekend. Are you all right?
Quiet weekend, lovely weekend, really one of the best of my life.
Good.
United winning that cup was just brilliant.
Thought that might have given you a bit of a spring in your step this weekend.
Did I not see you arm in arm with Alex Ferguson or somebody like that?
Yes.
Well done, you. Even I know who he is.
Even that's good, that's good. Guys, see you at 9:30. Thank you very much indeed. £20,000 to be won in the Great British Giveaway, and it ends on Friday.
Yes, and this is how you can get involved.
You really could be our next big winner with an incredible £20,000 in tax-free cash to play with this summer. What would you spend that on? Well, whilst you're thinking about it, listen to some of our previous winners getting that winning phone call from us.
You're the winner of the Great British Giveaway.
I'm slipping neck. Oh dear.
Oh my God, are you joking?
Do you know what? I've never won anything like this in my life.
Oh my God, this is amazing. Thank you.
Hurry, as lines close on Friday. For another chance to win £20,000 in tax-free cash, text WIN to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB05 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Right, Harry's visa, what's on it? Should we see it? And what does President Biden not want us to see? Angela Levin has all the details coming up.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, every Sunday at 9:30 when I'll be interviewing the key players in British politics and taking them to task. This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. With an upcoming election looming over Westminster, now is the time for clear, honest answers.
I agree.
And that's precisely what I'll get. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's election channel.
Britain's Newsroom, weekday mornings from 9:30.
The Eurovision, according to figures out this morning, had its most disastrous night to date because viewing figures were down by 2.5 million.
So the BBC had a drag queen on telling everyone that she was boycotting it.
Who was boycotting it?
Someone called Crystal, who came on the Newsnight to say
she?
that she was boycotting her North London party because of Israel. So maybe that's why the figures are down.
They cancelled some Eurovision parties in gay bars in
Yes,
Soho.
exactly. So I wonder whether that's what did it.
North London party.
I think the whole of Dalston basically not tuning in is what's caused this massive drop in ratings because of the whole controversy around Israel. I have to say, a lot of those performers needed to go and see a hygienist. I mean, that man who was the Irish entry, who's supposed to be a satanic witch. She does pop witchery or something.
She screeched.
And she screeched a lot, and then took her clothes off. Yeah. And then there was a sort of devil man who was gyrating around her, who obviously hadn't cleaned his teeth in years.
That was the vodka break.
Okay, fine.
That was the vodka break. When I went and got.
And I thought the Israeli entry. I mean, I didn't really like the song. I liked her dress.
But I just voted for it because
I thought the choreography was
I hated
awful,
the way she was
but,
besieged in a hotel room.
But I did also think that the Ukraine entry was quite interesting because I know that the Israeli entry got into trouble for referencing the October 7th attacks, and she had to sort of rewrite her stuff because you're not allowed to mention the war or anything like that, which is fine. But then the Ukraine entry was very war. I mean, they had kind of gunfire coming in over her.
The whole thing, there was double standards.
There was quite a lot of that,
I mean, the people outside, the queers of Palestine...
We're going to carry on paying for it, though, because, I mean, the BBC pays the lion's share of it. That's us.
Yeah.
And we do spectacularly every year.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threats on.
Our job is to do what's in the best interest of our country.
You made my argument for me. My guest and I tackle the issues that really matter, with a sharp take on every story.
I'm hearing it up and down the country. That was a beginning, not an end.
Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Prince Harry, did he take drugs? Did he not take drugs in getting his American citizenship? Did he tell the truth or not? Well, President Biden says, none of your business, go away, leave it all alone. Angela Levin now with her view on all of this. What do you think, Angela?
I think exactly the opposite. Don't leave it all alone. You can't actually have somebody who says in their own book, which he obviously read and he wrote, that he has taken several drugs. And how can he then pretend he hasn't? I mean, some people are saying even that he's doing that to make the book more interesting, but I don't think you can do that. You've got no common sense if you do that, and it doesn't come back. What annoys me is that people who work for Biden have said you can't do it because it will be a legal stigma. But it's not up to the government to work out what a stigma is and what it isn't. And I think it's completely wrong that they're trying to manipulate lawyers. If he's no longer a member of the royal, a working royal, he can't expect to have that sort of courage to let it go. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
So how do you see it? Did he take drugs? Did he just say he took drugs to make his book more interesting? Did he lie to the administration? Or did he say to the administration, I didn't lie, I just made things up in the book?
Well, that's an interesting question. I don't actually know, but I do know that when he was at school, he was taking all sorts of drugs then. And the people who were looking after him, his guards there, were too scared to tell King Charles. Then Prince Charles. They said that they weren't paid to look after him. They were paid to keep him safe.
Yeah.
Yes. And he did take drugs then, and whether he continued to do that right up to whenever, that's a different story. But he did take them. And I can't understand how he let that go through, how the publisher let it go through, didn't say to him, are you sure you want this? This is rather difficult. And where Meghan, who reads everything that he did, which I think is quite right, a wife can read her husband's book, that she didn't say, oops, careful here, this is going to be difficult if you want to get be American.
Speaking of Meghan, lots has been made in the past about her own ambitions in terms of politics, and obviously she would be a Democrat, which is President Biden's party. Do you think there's any link between the fact that Biden's gone out to bat for them, if you like, and her own perhaps political leanings?
Well, it could be, but he shouldn't be doing that. It's not a president's job. But I don't think she'll ever make it as a politician, because I heard she was crying the other day because not everybody liked her new sort of, what is it called, Americans, right? You know, the thing she's doing
Orchard,
yes, it's impossible to remember it. But her new, trying to do all this cooking and making sure that she's been crying a lot. She's absolutely very low, but she's very, very thin-skinned.
Yeah.
And anybody who criticises her, you know, she goes mad. She can't stand it. She can't cope with it. So if you want to be a central politician, or you want to be very, you know, high up in the ranks, then you need to have very, very thick skin.
Riviera Orchard's the name, isn't it?
Thank you, yes. Yeah. It's very hard to remember.
There have been some reports that Kate's been out and about and that the palace has been inundated with well-wishes and cards, which I think is lovely to hear.
They've got many thousands of cards wishing her well and saying that they miss her so much. All positive, all wonderful. And they've got extra people trying to reply because they want to say thank you very much. And I think that's lovely, and I hope that makes her feel really wanted, because she's very much missed, you know.
Absolutely.
You know, her smile with her children, the things she does, her attention to her work. And I think that this sort of thing, if you're not feeling very well and you've got all this terrible anxiety about, you know, having cancer, that does give you a much more positive attitude to life.
Angela, got to leave it there. We're out of time. Thank you very much indeed. Very, very interesting, as per usual.
That's it from us for today. We'll be back bright and early at 6 o'clock. Up next, though, it's Britain's Newsroom. But first, the forecast. Bye-bye.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning and welcome to your latest GB News weather from the Met Office. So after a showery weekend for many of us, there is further rain on the way as we head through the rest of today. This arriving into the west through the early hours of this morning and continues to push its way northwards as we head through this afternoon. But it will be a bit of a brighter start across parts of Scotland and northern England through this morning. That rain continues to turn quite heavy in places, particularly across western parts of Scotland, although we could see some showers developing across parts of Northern Ireland, central and southern parts parts of England. There could be some hail and thunder mixed in here too. Temperatures round about average for the time of year, 17 or 18 degrees across the south, but definitely feeling cooler under that cloud and rain. Through the rest of Tuesday evening, the rain continues to push its way northwards across parts of Scotland. The very far northeast perhaps getting away with some dry conditions, but that rain turning heavy in places, and those blustery, thundery showers continuing across parts of Northern Ireland and into southern parts of Scotland through this evening. The showers also continuing for northern parts of and eastern parts of England, but further south and further west, we will see outbreaks of rain continuing to push their way eastwards overnight tonight and into the early hours of Wednesday morning. Showers gradually easing generally, though, through the early hours of the morning, and there will be some clear spells between those showers, so perhaps turning a little chilly in places, but quite widely, those temperatures holding up into the